I'd like to call to order the February meeting of the California High-Speed Rail Authority. In just a moment I will.
All right. Good morning, everyone. We're going to take things a little bit out of order this morning. As some of you know, we're privileged to have a couple of new board members, and so although they may have been sworn in previously, just to avoid any doubt, we're going to re-swear the new board members and the reappointed board members, and that would be Mr. Toledo, Mr. Richards, and Mr. Pringle. So if three of you would stand and raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Kurt Pringle.
Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Solemnly swear that I will
Support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution
I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution
of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
That I will take this obligation freely,
I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties
And I will well and faithfully discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you. Congratulations. You've successfully completed your first task.
All right, Tom, Mike.
Next, why don't we go ahead and move to item number 3, the confirmation of officers and selection of committee members. And what I'll do is I will move the nomination of Mr. Pringle as chair and Ms. Rover as vice chair and Ms. Schenk as vice chair. And there's a second? All right. Madam Secretary, if you call the roll.
Chairman Pringle?
Aye.
Mr. Umberg?
Aye.
Ms. Schenk? Mr. Crane? Ms. Flores?
Aye.
Mr. Kopp? Mr. Richards? And Mr. Toledo?
Well, very good. All of that, as my term ended and started again, we wanted to make sure that everything was reconfirmed within the new context of the board. I want to thank Vice Chairman Umberg for that. So with that, the officers of the High-Speed Rail Authority will continue as they have been. I will serve as chair through the end of this chairman's term, which is the end of June, and concurrently, Mr. Umberg and Ms. Schenk are serving as the vice chairs through that term as well. So that's what all of that wonderful start was. And I want to properly welcome Matt Toledo and Tom Richards as new members of the board. It's wonderful that you gentlemen are here, and we have a lot of work to accomplish, and we feel all very proud that you would want to serve on this board, and I know the people of California will be served well by your presence and participation here. Thank you very much. In the as one administration ended and another began, there's always transition, and with that there's transition on this board. And one of the long-serving, two members, one being long-serving, one being not so long-serving, Mr. Deardon and Mr. Katz, are no longer members of the board, and I know that all of us thank them for their service, and I know Mr. Deardon is here today, and I'd like to call you forward, Mr. Deardon, because I want to ensure that we all properly and publicly thank you for your service. So before you say anything, because you mosey into a microphone signifies a great opportunity for you to say important things, I want to run down there and present you with a resolution on behalf of this High-Speed Rail Authority for your service to the people of California. Would you join with me in thanking Rod? Thank you.
Well, that's imposing. Mr. Chairman, thank you, and congratulations on your narrow margin of victory and winning re-election to the chair position. I can see that your campaign was successful. I want to take only a moment to welcome Tom and Matt, to wish them well in their responsibilities. As you all know, we all feel that this is the iconic project for the state of California for this century, not unlike the way the Golden Gate Bridge was the iconic project for the state during the last century. And I'm sure that as you move towards success in accomplishing this very difficult responsibility, that you'll at some point in your lives look back at that system running up and down the state that everyone is taking for granted, and realize that it wasn't easy to do. Just as with the Golden Gate Bridge project that at one time had over 2,400 lawsuits against it at one time, and with most of the major leaders in the state against it, you have much more of an advantage here than most of the people are in favor of it, and you have only a couple of lawsuits against you. And so far, the AG has been very successful in frustrating those. David? And so I wish you well in what you're pursuing. I'm happy to stand by to support wherever that support might be necessary, and look forward to being with you from time to time in the future. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you very much.
At this time, I'd like to welcome Mr. Crane. And with that, we'll move to item 1, which is public comment. I have a number of comment cards, and on the comment cards, they designate which agenda item you wish to speak to. Therefore, I will call up only those at this time who suggested they'd like to speak under public comments, or those who didn't list an agenda item to speak to. So at this time, I'd like to invite forward Supervisor Henry Perea. And following Mr. Perea, Mayor Pro Tem Michael Maciel. Welcome, sir.
Welcome. Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Henry Perea, Fresno Works. I'd like to first congratulate you, Chairman Kringle, on the selection to chairmanship again, and of course to welcome Fresno's Tom Richards to this board. I know you're going to do a great job. He always has done in Fresno, and I know you will represent the people of California perfectly in your position. And Mr. Toledo, we also welcome you too. Just wanted to, beyond that, thank you for the decision you made the last few months selecting the construction of the first line of the high-speed rail. What you did in your decision, your historic decision, was to make the Central Valley the focal point of high-speed rail, not just in the state of California, but in the United States. And you made Fresno ground zero. And we've seen so much activity since then, a lot of international interest in learning where the first line is going to be built. A lot of folks coming in to see what the area looks like. And as you've probably heard, we hosted a Chinese delegation 3-4 weeks ago now, and they just had a really good opportunity to see what the Valley has to offer and what their opportunities may be in the state of California. So I'll just leave it there, and the last thing I'll just turn in to the clerk is a resolution supporting what you already support, and that is the hiring of local labor, local businesses to construct the line. So I'll leave that with the clerk, and thank you, and looking forward to a great year.
Thank you very much. I want to make sure I pronounce this gentleman's name right. Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Tracy. Let me see. I'll try again. Mr. Councilman Maciel, is that? How's that? Pretty close?
That's good. I get a lot of variations. Maciel.
Maciel.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir.
And board members. Thank you very much for this opportunity to express our continued support for the Altamont Corridor. The people of Tracy, our county, our local COG, our rail commission are all supportive of the staff recommendation before you. I can tell you that we're excited about the Altamont corridor. Not only would it provide our area residents with access to the overall state high-speed rail system that many of our people may use on occasion, some of them would use on a regular basis, but the population in general would take advantage of the Altamont corridor options probably on a daily basis, both giving us the opportunity to get into the Bay Area at numerous locations and into the Sacramento area. I know there's a lot of challenges that you'll be facing as you try to bring these projects to fruition. Best of luck, our encouragement, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir. If I may ask, I believe Councilman Jeff Williams, and then following him, Ms. Teresa Nemeth. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Chairman Pringle and Board. I'm Jeff Williams. I'm a council member from the city of Livermore. Livermore Mayor Kamena sends his regards as he was unable to attend today's meeting. As many of you know, the city of Livermore, as a member of the Altamont Partnership Working Group, has been an active participant in the ongoing studies for the Altamont Corridor Rail project. We have also worked in partnership with the Bay Area Rapid Transit District to plan a BART extension to Livermore. On July 1st, 2010, the BART Board of Directors selected a preferred alignment, including stations in downtown Livermore and at the Vasco Road ACE, that is the Altamont Commuter Express station adjacent to Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory and Sandia National Laboratory, which is in the heart of the newly state-designated innovation hub, that is our iHub. Vasco Road Station is an ideal location to achieve a cross-platform transfer point between BART and the improved regional rail service envisioned in the Altamont Corridor Rail project. This would provide a critical connection between the state high-speed rail system and BART in Livermore via the improved regional rail service in the Altamont Corridor. So today you are being asked to approve the preliminary alternatives analysis for the Altamont Corridor Rail project. The report identifies two potential corridors through Livermore and the Tri-Valley. That is the Union Pacific Railroad corridor, and also an alignment which runs south of Livermore to Sunol, bypassing the city of Pleasanton. The report also identifies both aerial and tunnel alternatives. While we expect some public concern over potential impacts, particularly from the aerial alternative through downtowns of Livermore and Pleasanton, we believe that the alternatives presented in the report are reasonable to carry forward for the environmental analysis. The City of Livermore and the Livermore City Council urges the authority to approve the preliminary alternatives analysis report so that this important project can move forward to the next step, which is additional public outreach on the potential segments. I also have brought with me a letter to you from the President of the Alameda County Board of Supervisors, Scott Haggerty, urging his support of the preliminary plan. Just to read one piece of it, Alameda County and partners from several regions have been actively involved for the past 2 years to develop plans for the Altamont Corridor that address connectivity not only between the Central Valley and the Bay Area, but to every major transit service in the Bay Area, including 2 of its international airports. We have worked with the counties, cities, transit organizations, planning agencies, and California High-Speed Rail Authority to come together on an effective program for this segment. The planning work is consistent with many of the next steps identified for the corridor in the Metropolitan Transit Commission's Regional Rail Plan for the Bay Area. The Altamont Corridor Rail project would provide a critical link between the state high-speed rail system and BART and Livermore. Continued collaboration at the regional and local level will be crucial to identify and implement a system which effectively meets our mutual goals of statewide and interregional connectivity while making the best use of precious public dollars. That was from Scott Haggerty, President of the Alameda County Board of Supervisors. So, in summary, the City of Livermore enthusiastically endorses the next steps forward on the Altamont rail corridor, and as does the Alameda County Board of Supervisors. Thank you much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next, I'd like Ms. Nemeth, and then following her, Mr. Rich Dryden. Yes.
Good morning.
Hello.
My name is Teresa Nemeth. I'm with Alexandria Real Estate Equities. We are developers and owners of biotechnology buildings throughout the country. We happen to own quite a bit of property in the Mission Bay neighborhood of San Francisco, past which your high-speed rail is going to go. Your current plans, as outlined by your staff, are to have the rail at grade and to depress 16th Street and Mission Bay Drive. This is a problem for us. We have stated this problem to your staff back in September and been ignored. We joined with other property owners and worked with the City of San Francisco to put together a letter that was sent to you on December 5th. We've not heard a response. I've now put together a letter that I've sent to your staff and copied each of you. We hope to hear back from you. We're very concerned because we think that the decision that was made of having that rail at grade was made on the basis of a cost that did not include the impact on surrounding property owners. It did not include any acquisition costs or compensation costs, which you would surely have to incur as you pass through a very dense urban area that is impacted by what you're planning to do. So we highly encourage you to consider different alternatives in your EIR that would bring the rail underground past our property so as not to incur those extraneous other costs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. And we will look into and ensure there is some response to this lady and her concerns. I'd like to hear from Mr. Dryden, following by Mr. Luis Collins. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Chairman, members. Thank you for having us here. I'm also joined by one of the leaderships of our organization, Mr. Chris Coles from Anchor Engineering. I'm Rich Dryden, the Executive Director of the California Disabled Veteran Business Alliance. We're a 501c3 nonprofit providing, in business since 1994, providing oversight for the California Disabled Veteran Business Enterprise DVBE program. We do whatever is necessary to help the state and certified DVBE meet the goals and intent of the program. Let me start by acknowledging that the High-Speed Rail Authority has grown exponentially in the past 6 months, and that growth is not subsiding. We applaud the work of the authority thus far to try and meet the awesome structural overload generated by this growth, and our alliance and its constituency offer the authority our support and assistance. There are two primary sources of funding at this time for high-speed rail project. One is the state funds from Prop 1A, and other is ARRA money provided to the state via federal rail. All of these dollars will be subject to the state's participation goals of 25% small business and 3% DVBE, obviously, which will be covered later in Agenda Item 7. We know that the DVBE goal is not now being met, but we believe this shortfall is a result of the growth equation rather than a lack of intent by the authority to meet the goal. To increase DVBE participation, we need a strong relationship among all agencies participating, and particularly between DGS and the High-Speed Rail Authority. Our alliance has forged a strong relationship with DGS and seeks that same strong rapport with your authority. As such, we are absolutely dedicated to meeting the state goals, and we stand ready to assist your efforts. As such, we recommend the following business goals be set for all future HSR contracts: 35% small business, 5% DVBE. The state program for small business is 25%, but since federal disadvantaged business enterprises, DBE, most of which are small businesses, may not have a goal achieved, so the 10% increase will help the state keep those DBE businesses active in this huge project. Caltrans already has a 5% DVBE goal on most projects and is achieving 5% routinely. Therefore, it is a natural conclusion that 5% DVBE for HSR should easily be accomplished. And if I may, just a quick comment from Chris.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank the board. We have been participants as engineering consultants in the San Francisco to San Jose and also in the Fresno to Palmdale segments, and it has been very helpful to our business in these rough times, and it has also helped us mobilize in keeping with our company goals to serve the public with our railroad engineering and construction expertise. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And, sir, what was your name? I want to make sure I...
My name is Chris Coles.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
And thank you, both gentlemen, for your comments. I believe Mr. Collins is next. Following Mr. Collins, Ms. Diana Lacombe.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Board. My name is Lewis Collins, and I'm the president of Engage Integrated Systems Technology. We are a small business and disabled veteran business enterprise here in the Sacramento area. I'm a Vietnam veteran, twice wounded, Purple Heart recipient, and just wanted to say we're in support of the board developing a policy for disabled veteran business enterprises and small businesses. And just want to congratulate you on that. We understand the value of having those kind of policies and how they impact the small businesses and the disabled veteran businesses enterprises. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Ms. Lacombe, following her, I'd like to hear from Mr. Paul Guerrero.
Good morning. I'm Diana Lacombe, president of the Associated Professionals and Contractors, APAC for short. I'm also president of the National Concilio of America. I realize that the California high-speed rail is riding a wave of unprecedented popularity. The President of the United States, in a State of the Union address, acknowledged California as the national leader in high-speed rail. California also accepted an additional $600 million of high-speed rail funding that was turned back by governors in Ohio and Wisconsin. The funding apparently represents 36,000 jobs lost to these states. These jobs, of course, will be highly welcomed by the many unemployed Californians. This is all well and good. However, in spite of all this popularity, APAC will continue aggressively seeking support from California representatives in Washington, D.C., California business associations, local and national media to stop federal funding to the California high-speed rail until 49 CFR Part 26, the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, is made part of your contracting program. Since the 1960s, the civil rights laws have been an integral part of the United States Department of Transportation's programs, such as federal highway, federal transit, and federal aviation. Why should the Federal Rail Administration and the High-Speed Rail, California, be exempt from these laws? It may have been an oversight by elected officials years ago, but this afternoon, when you discuss this issue in closed session, remember that you can do the right thing, and that is adopting 49 CFR Part 26 when you receive federal funding. On a separate but similar issue are federal and state laws that deal with environmental justice, which is defined as the fair treatment of people of all races, cultures, and incomes with respect to the development, adoption, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws and policies. In the past, low-income and minority communities bore many of the negative impacts of transportation projects. As a result, to achieve environmental justice, the decision-making process must, 1, invite the full and fair participation of all potentially affected communities. 2, minimize unfair, negative impacts caused by transportation projects. And 3, fairly distribute the benefits of transportation projects and policy decisions. I am very concerned about local communities being impacted in this first stage of the project between Bakersfield and Fresno. I request a copy of the environmental impact report for this section of the project, and more specifically, the environmental justice plan that is supposed to be conducted as part of this project. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Mr. Guerrero, then we'd like to hear from Ms. Julia Berry.
Yeah, my name is Paul Guerrero. I'm also a member of APAC, which is a coalition of statewide coalition of small minority and small business organizations. I reviewed your SB-DBBE policy, and I find it really kind of lacking. It's sad. We have other state agencies such as General Services, which are talking about making the 25% goal a threshold, no longer a goal, because so many agencies are meeting the 25% with no problem, yet we sit here and we're not meeting a small business goal and we're not meeting a DVBE goal. And it's kind of sad because the money that you're spending is our tax dollars. It's supposed to take and bring money back and work back to the small minority community and the small business community, Martin Luther King Drive and Cesar Chavez Drive. But that doesn't seem to be. It seems to be going out of state into big companies. So I urge you to get serious about the small business participation goals and the DVBE goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Ms. Berry, then Mr. Bobby Kahn.
Good morning, Chairman and members. I'm Julia Berry with Madera County Farm Bureau. We are with California Farm Bureau. I represent the County of Madera and the growers there. I come here on happy terms, which is fun for us because in the past we've done a lot of complaining on behalf of the agricultural community. Every year we do a regional conference wherein we invite all of the agricultural constituency from the Central Valley and our elected officials and interested parties from the public to learn about issues that are germane at any particular time. This year we are going to feature high-speed rail. Last year we featured Judge Wanger wherein he explained his decision on the Delta Smelt, the famous court case, and so we draw a pretty big crowd. And I wanted to say that we're happy that your CEO, Mr. Ed Van Ark, has agreed to be our featured speaker. And so we'd like to publicly thank him for participating and helping us further our mission, because what we do at California Farm Bureau is represent farmers, but we also try to educate the public about our issues, and we try to get the information out to them. So our conference is on February 25th. It's the last Friday of the month. And again, we would just like to say thank you for your participation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kahn.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Bobby Kahn, Madera County Economic Development Commission. What I have to say today is probably going to be redundant for some of the board members, but I thought it would be important for the newer board members. First of all, I'd like to just go on record once again that the City of Madera, the City of Chowchilla, the Chamber of Commerce of Chowchilla, Chamber of Commerce of Madera, the Madera Manufacturers Association, and the Madera County Economic Development Commission are all adamantly opposed to the A2 alignment that runs through the middle of both cities. I know that we have asked the board to remove A2 from consideration, but we know at this phase of the game that that's not going to happen, so we are asking you to speed through your EIR process so that we can get this route eliminated, hopefully. This route has cost the City of Madera $6 million in infrastructure grants. It's cost the City of Chowchilla close to $4 million in infrastructure grants. We've lost an industrial project because we had to disclose the fact that the A2 alignment could impact their future facilities. So it's costing us jobs. Both Azteca Milling has gone on record with your board as having resistance to this A2 alignment. They have a $100 million facility in the county of Madera that would probably be abandoned if the A2 alignment goes through. We'd also like to hear what you were going to do with the Pacific Gas and Electric transmission line that runs along the UP alignment. Zellman Development has also gone on record saying that they have their project on hold until the A2 alignment is decided whether it's going to go or not. That is, again, a huge project, projected 1,000 jobs for the city and county of Madera. Even though the alignment is not been chosen, it's having a huge negative impact on our cities and our county. So I just wanted to go on record once again in our opposition of A2, and hopefully if any of the new board members have any questions, they can feel free to get a hold of me at my office at any time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kahn. That brings us to the end of those people who asked to be heard under public comment. So at this time, without objection, I'd like to move to item number 2. That's approval of minutes. Any member of the... Oh.
I did give them a sheet there.
Sir, would you like to speak on the agenda item you listed, item number 7, or would you like to speak now under public comment?
Actually, I'll wait until the item comes.
You're more than welcome to speak either time.
Well, that'll help me now. Actually, I want to speak to the fact that my name is Bobby Bivens, and I'm the State Economic Development Chairperson for the NAACP. And we certainly would like the Rail Commission or the Light Rail Commission to make sure that there is a adequate DBE program and small business program. This is another opportunity for Americans that are normally not included from the beginning of a process. We have a task that's going to go across America with billions and billions of dollars being spent. And historically, minority and women-owned businesses have not been included necessarily this early in the game, and we want to be sure that they are. Ms. Lacombe spoke to some issues as it relates to the environmental issues and also for the inclusion of minority-owned businesses. The country is suffering, and whenever the country has a cold, the minority business community has pneumonia. So with that in mind and realizing that everyone is suffering, everyone should also have an opportunity to participate in this economic endeavor. And we certainly would like you all to make sure that minority and small businesses are included in every aspect of the program, and in particular in the environmental justice part and in the business opportunities. So thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. This time I'd like to move to item number 2, which is approval of meeting minutes. Any member of the board wish to offer any suggestions or alterations? A motion by Ms. Schenk, second by Mr. Crane. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Very good. The item passes. We've already concluded item number 3 and moved to item number 4, the revised 2011 board meeting schedule. Yes, ma'am. Yes, Ms. Schenk. Very good. Let the record reflect such. Item number 4 is the revised board member meeting date schedule. I probably am concerned about the July meeting being the week of the 4th of July and the challenges that would bring. This is the 4th of July is on Monday, and we would probably ensure that we reconstitute committee meetings, which would take place the Wednesday before. I'm just a bit concerned about how that would function that week, if people wish to be gone that week. So I feel comfortable with moving forward with this agenda schedule for meetings, but with the understanding that that date may be adjusted later.
Why don't we just,
Mr. Umberg?
Mr. Chair, why don't we just adjust it now? Why don't we just move it back a week now for planning purposes?
I would feel good about that. What does anyone think?
Can you move it
To the 14th.
Right. Right. Anyone have any objection to that? All right. Yes, Ms. Schenk?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, looking at this, we have an August meeting, but not a September meeting. I don't know about the legislative calendar, if that was looked at so that we can coordinate a here in August and not September. I'm wondering if we should be meeting.
Right, so in an odd number year, the legislature is in session till the 15th of September. So
And through August?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you never quite know. But you do know when the end is. So you are correct that the legislature will be here and probably concluding its business the first 2 weeks of September. So your thought is, excuse me.
Eliminate one of those, although I don't know why we need to eliminate September.
Ms. Schenk, maybe I could ask Mr. Van Ark, was there a reason why the September meeting was contemplated to be canceled?
Well, it's probably before Labor Day, so.
I cannot recall that that was specifically the case. I think we have the flexibility between the two. If we've been trying to consolidate the meetings.
Right.
But I do think that we can move between August and September. I definitely need a meeting in that time frame, but I think there's not a big difference between August and September dates.
Very good. Since we moved the July meeting to the 14th, would there be any objection to reestablishing the September 1st meeting and not holding a meeting in August? And anyone feel at this time that September 1st, which would be the Thursday before the Labor Day weekend?
Not to be self-serving, but I'm not here on September 1st. That was I was just wondering if that might affect anybody else.
Well, we want to make sure we maximize the potential.
I don't get back until the 18th.
Yes, Mr. Umberg.
So, Mr. Chair, why don't we make that September the 8th then?
Well, Mr. Richards just suggested he will be gone through the first couple weeks.
First couple weeks?
I don't get back until
The 18th, so it doesn't matter. Although the 1st of September may be a challenging travel day, the Thursday before the Labor Day weekend.
I'm open to suggestions. I still am open to suggestion.
Is the legislature here during the week following Labor Day, in other words, moving it to the 8th?
Right, that's that would presumably be the last week of session. Well,
the 15th.
The 15th is the last day.
There'll be another week
right.
after that. So either the 1st or the 8th, but I think September is a more timely.
I think we should then rather, if it suits you, do it on the 1st, because if we push it too late back, we get close to October again.
I agree.
Is it into the 1st of September?
Is it possible to meet late in August?
Yeah, if we're not going to have an August meeting, why don't we consider maybe that last Thursday in August then? That's a
possibility.
What is that date?
Is that the 25th? How would that work with everyone, that last week in August?
That works with me.
Yeah.
Very good. So that objection will change the August 4th meeting to August 25th and still not hold a September meeting. So there's two adjustments to the proposed board meeting schedule. The July meeting being on the 14th, the August meeting being on the 25th. Any further suggestions? Is there a motion to adopt that? Motion by Mr. Richards, second by Ms. Flores. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Very good. Next item on our agenda is item number 5, high-speed train station area development policy. Mr. Levitt.
Thank you, Chairman Pringle, member of the board. At your May 14th, 2008 board meeting, you adopted high-speed train station area development policies, which were incorporated into your Bay Area to Central Valley high-speed train program EIS document. These policies recognize the importance of transit-oriented development and value capture at and around station sites that support and promote high-speed train ridership. As part of these adopted policies, the authority committed to utilizing its resources, both financial and otherwise, to encourage the implementation of transit-oriented development, smart growth principles, and value capture at and near high-speed train stations. The goal of the authority in regards to high-speed train stationary development is to have local authorities go beyond the basics in design and development of their station area and plan for a greater vision that takes full advantage of this new transportation alternative within their city and region. To help meet the authority's commitments, staff proposes that the authority provide matching state funds of up to 40% for locally led station area planning studies, with the state share to not exceed $200,000 for each station area. These would be in addition to any federal funding directly allocated for stationary development, whether direct or through the authority. These funds are for study, for research and planning of local high-speed train station areas, and they are not for construction. The authority should limit its role to one of an advisory position, thereby not restricting the ideas of each community. As you'll remember, this item was presented at the August 2010 Executive Committee meeting, and at that meeting, staff was directed really to do three things. First, to revise the high-speed train stationary development document, which was prepared for the Bay Area to Central Valley Program document, to make it a more system-wide, statewide focus for the document, and then to request input from regional and local entities on that revised document, and then to bring forth to you any recommended appropriate changes to the document based on that input. As you've asked, we have done that and presented a revised version of the high-speed train stationary development document to regional agencies, transportation agencies, all the cities that were slated to have a potential high-speed train station, and other organizations and agencies. We received 35 different responses, input letters on this revised document, and in general, the responses received were very supportive of the High-Speed Rail Authority's program and the cooperation for help in this area. They did, however, have a number of comments and suggestions, and in particular, wanted to be sure that there was flexibility in the process so that each city could develop the most appropriate station area for its community. A recurring theme throughout all the letters that we received was that don't assume that one size fits all for either for high-speed train stations or for the development around these stations. We provided you with a summary of the response letters in your book items, and that summary, as well as the letters themselves, are available on our website. Based on the input that we received, a revised high-speed train stationary development general principles and guidelines document was submitted to you in your book items, and that document highlighted the proposed edits that we have based on the input received. Staff recommends that the board approve today the revisions to the high-speed train stationary development document and delegate to our CEO the authority to negotiate and enter into agreements with communities by adopting Resolution HSRA 11-07.
Very good. That concludes the staff presentation. This time, there are a number of members of the public that wish to be heard on this item. So if I could ask those people to come up and speak on this item. First, Mayor Bill Spriggs from Merced. Following Mayor Spriggs, Mr. Hightower. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and staff. I would, Board, I'd like to commend you for this action and support City of Merced and the County of Merced, support the staff's recommendation. Good planning costs money. The City of Merced is just now embarking on, or starting final comment period on our new general plan, and we are including in that a high-speed rail overlay, because at this point in time we don't know when or where, but we are working to accommodate it. It is interesting, we are also starting a what's called the Bellevue Corridor Specific Plan, which we received a $250,000 grant from the Strategic Growth Council, and that is the entryway to the UC Merced campus. So I would also encourage you to have staff work maybe collaboratively with the Strategic Growth Council, and maybe there's some opportunities to leverage some additional funds for planning. But it's necessary, and thank you.
Very good. Mr. Troy Hightower, and following Mr. Hightower, Mr. Ben Troposis.
Good morning, Chairman Pringle and members of the board. My name is Troy Hightower from Kern Council of Governments, and I'm here to express our support for this item, station area development. Kern Cog, the City of Bakersfield, and the County of Kern some years ago have adopted a proposed site in downtown Bakersfield, which is adjacent to the existing Amtrak station. That same site is in the alternative analysis report along the blue alignment. More recently, in October, KernCog entered an MOU with the city of Bakersfield to develop a station area plan. We're working with our local transit agency, Golden Empire Transit, and our regional transit, as well as the county of Kern. In addition to that, we have $200,000 available in local funds for this project. And so with that, we encourage you to approve agenda item number 5. We look forward to collaborating with the authority on station design and station area design. In addition, Kern does support the other high-speed rail-related activities, the alignments that go through Kern, even the Bakersfield to Palmdale section, as well as consideration for the heavy maintenance facility. In conclusion, personally, I'd like to say I came up on the train. I prefer using the train throughout my travels in the state of California. I've been on the TGV in France a number of times, and I'm anxious to do the same here in California. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Treposis, and following him, Ms. Stacy Mortensen. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning. Ben Treposis with the City of San Jose. On behalf of the City of San Jose, I'd like to express our wholehearted support for the High-Speed Rail Authority's high-speed train station area development guidelines and the authority's willingness to partner with local communities to fully develop high-speed train station areas. We share the authority's belief that we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to make the high-speed train stations and the adjacent land uses extraordinary destinations that enhance both the high-speed train system and the surrounding community. Helping to fund these efforts will go a long way toward realizing these goals. The City of San Jose is leading the way in this effort by investing $1 million in the ongoing development of the Diridon Station Area Master Plan. The goal of the master plan is to identify and environmentally clear the most effective long-term land uses for the expanded Diridon Station area and the surrounding properties. We agree that there are great benefits to enhancing development patterns and increasing densities near proposed high-speed train stations, giving us an opportunity to maximize station area development that serves the local community and economy while increasing high-speed train ridership. We encourage the authority's continued support of efforts like the development of the Diridon Area Master Plan, and we encourage other communities to follow suit. We believe the high-speed train station area development policy that you've established is an important step in that direction. Thank you for your recognition of the importance of stations supporting land uses. The City of San Jose pledges its continued support for these efforts and looks forward to working with the authority and staff on the further development of the Diridon Station area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Mortensen, then Mr. Ed Gravel.
Good morning, new members and all. I'm from the San Joaquin region, and we may not be part of the first trains out the gate, but I do want to support you on the programs for those entities that are moving forward. We want to show our support because we're part of the statewide system. I think this is a good program to further establish and deepen your relationships with the local communities, but also recognize that these are delicate. When locals have a large state partner in a civic facility with all this complexity, it can get a little tense, but I think this is a very good move. I think this body brings the expertise about the scale of these things that we as the locals do not have, and you bring the international experience of people who've done this before, tried and failed, tried and succeeded, so you can show us what works and what doesn't. So we just want to say this is a very good program. We view it very favorably at the local level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ed Gravelin, though. Sorry. Ran forward on the name wrong. Then Mr. Miller.
I'm sure it was my writing.
Probably.
Yeah, probably. I just have a quick letter from Mayor Swearingen in Fresno. She was sorry she can't be here. She says, Dear Chair Pringle, I regret that I'm unable to attend the authority board meeting, but would like to extend my support for the authority's efforts to establish funding agreements with communities for station area planning. This funding is absolutely essential for cities like Fresno, which will have one of the first stations built as part of California's high-speed rail corridor. Additionally, we look forward to working with the authority on accessing the funds as soon as possible. Under an accelerated timeline for construction of the Fresno station, it is essential that we have the resources necessary to complete the work on our downtown station as quickly as possible. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Ashley Swearingen. And just personally, obviously, we would love to see those funds come soon, and we feel like we're behind the eight ball and we need to get going. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Larry Miller.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mr. Chairman, members. My name is Larry Miller. I've been involved in several rail activities over the last decade with relation to the southern San Joaquin Valley. In particular, I represented Fresno County on the San Joaquin Valley Rail Committee, which advises Caltrans and Amtrak on the operations of the San Joaquins. And at one point, I chaired their Marketing and Operations Committee. I've been a member of the Fresno Cog Rail Committee, the High-Speed Rail Technical Advisory Group for alignment study in Fresno County, and several other things. But today, I don't represent any of those groups. I'm here in a personal capacity, and I don't want to obligate any of those groups to the heretical ideas I'm about to espouse. In particular, some of you may have seen a year ago a publication of the Train Riders Association of California, which argued that it would be prudent to run the corridor from the southern part of the valley to as far north as Tracy along the I-5 corridor. And the author of the article had several very good reasons. But, of course, it was a non-starter because the guy argued for no connection with the rest of the valley, essentially making a peripheral around the towns and cities of the Central Valley and disenfranchising the people who live in the San Joaquin Valley. And I think for that reason alone, prudently, this authority decided that that was not a good alignment, and they made that decision early on, quite some time ago. But in view of some recent circumstances, I'm going to ask you to ride with me just a little bit here with the suggestion that you might want to reconsider that alignment. And specifically, I'm going to suggest that you consider the fact that there exists a short line freight railroad which operates and has operated in that part of the valley for over 100 years. It's called the San Joaquin Valley Railroad, and it hauls freight and connects with the UP and the BNSF, and it goes from basically Bakersfield along the Highway 65 through Porterville and Visalia onto Fresno. It goes west from Fresno to Mendota, and then travels north and peters out in a small town called Oxalis. If this were 10 years ago, this wouldn't even be an option for you, and I'm not sure it's an option for you now. I'm just a friend of the activity trying to make a suggestion about a possible and very valuable opportunity. The reason is that that railroad also has 3 lines that go from essentially Highway 99 westward to the I-5 corridor. And these are not as well-used corridors as they used to be. The company is a wholly owned subsidiary of Rail America, which is a very large holding company for short lines. This one isn't really doing that well. It used to do well, but with the loss of crop subsidies for cotton, the loss of subsidies for agricultural water and so forth, they don't have the volume of freight that they used to have, and now they're looking to abandon sections of their track and sell off the assets, including a warehouse outside of Fresno, between Fresno and the I-5 corridor. And so I don't want to belabor this point, and I certainly don't expect to walk through the information I gave you here, but if you'd be kind enough to look at page 6, which is the colored page, I'd like to highlight the opportunity briefly.
Well, thank you, sir, and thank you for sharing that with us, and I know the CEO and staff have that information as well.
Okay. Allow me very briefly, though, to...
All right, so
I purposely didn't identify the colors
so
here.
Tell me what you wish to close on.
Okay. What the colors represent here.
Yes, sir.
And the opportunity for you.
All right.
It would be, the blue line is the I-5 corridor. The aqua line is the San Joaquin Valley Railroad short line, and the yellow lines are the tracks that exist almost to I-5 and in some cases to I-5. This means you could use Amtrak as a true feeder and distribution service. You wouldn't have to build this, and the advantages would be lowering your cost. You're welcome.
Yes.
You're welcome.
I appreciate your comments. As you kind of hijack the high-speed train development policy, and I know you sent in a card on that, as well as wanting to speak on this item. So thank you very much, sir, for your
You're
points,
welcome.
and we have
Appreciate the
package.
opportunity to be heard, and I hope you'll consider it.
Very good. Any board comments then? Back on subject, the high-speed train stationary development policy that has been presented to you. Yes, Mr. Crane.
I just have some questions actually for the staff. I can direct these to Roloff or whomever.
Mr. Levitt?
Or Mr. Levitt, yeah. 3 or 4 questions. First, is there a model or models around the world that we sort of looked at and said, this is sort of what we like? This is driving our thinking in this regard as to the standards we establish?
There are models throughout the world where they have very effectively done transit-oriented development, but this is something that basically, if you look at any country, the way they've been able to get the most out of their system is by having each city along the route make detailed plans for their long-term vision for the station area, not just the station itself, but the area around it. And we believe that that's essential to the success of the system here in California as well, to be able to, and this is something that the board has made part of its policies over the last several years, but that we will enhance the viability of the system by working with the communities so that they plan around our high-speed train stations.
And if I may, Member Crane, I mean, there is a lot of experience around the world, but as was told to you by Dan Levitt, I mean, every city is different. And therefore, when you start talking about the station area development, it is really the interface between the city and the station. And that's what we're talking about here.
Well, what I'm interested in is sort of like the carrots and the sticks we're going to employ to get what we want out of this. And someone, I don't know, I'm not fully up to speed on the history of BART, but my understanding in the case of BART is that there was an enormous amount of down zoning that took place around the stations after they designed BART. And the net result is you didn't get that much great transit-oriented development around BART, at least initially. What are we going to do to make sure that these stations effectively do what we want them to do, which is great transit-oriented development that builds really big ridership for us? And the other concern I have is, are we optimizing, are we thinking in the context of generating financing for us? Because the other thing that we want, if we're going to run like a business, and we have to generate an enormous amount of financing, is do we consider in this context generating financing out of these various stations and almost creating a competition among them to do what's necessary to get us what we need?
Yes, I guess the first thing, what we are looking at value capture as a part of this and trying to through a stationary development plan, be able to use joint development to help fund a more grand station itself, and that can help pay for public spaces. I'd like to say that one thing that in terms of trying to get the best type of development, a key element of this, which we did through the program process, was recognizing where the station is located. And if you look throughout, for example, throughout the Central Valley, there was a lot of different sites that were evaluated. We found that the best locations in order to be able to have the greatest opportunity for transit-oriented development were in the downtowns. And this is where the cities supported, and the environmental agencies and the resource agencies all supported us, so that you're able to actually take an area that really is striving for this type of development, put the station there, and help them actually achieve their goals for the existing cities. So our station, by putting our stations in downtowns, we have really supported these policies, and now what we're doing is providing a carrot for these cities to be able to do planning to help them bring that type of development that they actually want to these downtown locations.
Last question, Mr. Chairman. So what are the sticks? Well, I understand the carrot we're providing is 40% funding, right, that they match. What are the sticks? Because we need these people to do the right thing to build up the ridership for us and generate the financing for us.
All of the stations that the authority is currently investigating throughout the system are potential stations. And you do, as part of the policies that you've adopted in your environmental documents, you've stated that all the stations that you have will be multimodal hubs, and that they all will be able to promote transit-oriented development. And you have the opportunity, if you find that there are stations that are not doing that, you can say that, well, you're not following our policies and you're not getting a station.
I'd also like to add to that. We would have to put, and we'll be putting funding agreements in place together with these different cities and agencies. And of course, within that, we would specify their performance. It's not just free money. I mean, they have to perform, and they have to work with us and give us their scope of work, and it will be clear from the beginning what they have to do. If there's no performance, there's no money.
Ms. Schenk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is where going around to look at other countries and what they've done is of great value, because even before I was on the authority, I spent a lot of time in Japan and France, and then more recently in Spain. And seeing the customization of each station in different communities, in metropolitan areas, the development is different than in more rural areas, and they have a pretty mature system for maximizing ridership. And in downtown Kyoto, for example, there are hotels so that people can come in from other places and stay in the hotel right there at the station, a beautiful hotel. I stayed there. Reading this, I see that we've come a long way in developing a policy that builds on those models that others have developed. So I appreciate that. And I want to make sure that even though we're looking just at the first phase, that what we're thinking about are the other phases as well, the other cities throughout California that ultimately will have to meet these same guidelines. Is that right, Dan?
Yes, and actually, for these resources, we didn't specify they are available to not only the Phase 1, but also potentially to Phase 2. It's not specific, so Phase 2 stations would be available to request for these funds.
So if some Phase 1 cities fell out, we in San Diego could pounce, right? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman. If I could, on that point, are they prioritized on Phase 1 and Phase 2?
This has not. What is prioritized is the federal funding.
Yes.
That is available. That actually is only for Phase 1.
Yes.
But this, at this point, is left it open to the discretion of the CEO.
Very good. Yes, Mr. Van Ark, did you have an additional question?
I just wanted to make mention again, this is, of course, as you understood, matching funds. And there are many other funds available, and what we want to do is we want to ensure that these cities, towns, and people are motivated to go out and get other funds so that they can really get their planning going. You've heard from a few of the public comments today that many of the cities struggle because they haven't really started their planning. The planning is needed. It's really necessary. And we believe by us giving, this seed money, the matching funds, they can go out and really go and fight for a lot more. And we'll get them quite a good amount of money that they can work with.
Very good. Mr. Kopp.
Mr. Levitt, many of these cities which commented made the point that this is different than community or commuter, TOD. And I want to be reassured that that is part of the process which developed these development policies.
Absolutely. These are very different. We are more at if you look at a traditional sort of rail system, we are at the hub of that. And so the development would be quite different, but it does follow similar principles to what is commonly known as transitory development.
Well, I'm prepared to make a motion to adopt the proposed resolution with a couple of modifications. I don't think in the resolve section you need the second paragraph. Instead, I would put a comma after the word development in the first paragraph and then add the words in accordance with such station area development policy, period.
And then in the, delete the second paragraph, then in the third paragraph, these state funding agreements will be limited to 40% of the total cost for the study, comma, delete the words and will, and simply put in the word to, so it'll read not to exceed $200,000 per agreement, period. And with those modifications.
Very good. Let me first ask, are any other member of the board wish to be heard on this item? Seeing no one, the motion made with the modifications of the resolution as presented by Board Member Kopp. Is there a second? A second by Mr. Richards. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by the word aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. The item passes unanimously. On to item number 6.
Me again. Actually, I'm just going to introduce the consulting team for this, for the presentation of the preliminary alternative analysis work with the Altamont Corridor Rail Project. And we've got two representatives, Will Gimple, who is with our project management team. He's the regional director for this section. And then also Brent Ogden with AECOM, who is the project manager for the Altamont Corridor Rail Project work that we do for the environmental and engineering work.
Thank you, Dan. Good morning. Kong Hei Fa Choi. Happy New Year. My name is Will Gimple. I'm the regional manager for the Altamont Corridor Project. We're here to give you a status update on our work, and also we've reached a major milestone. We've completed the preliminary alternatives analysis, and we're presenting it to you for your approval. This team was here last spring when we presented our initial list of alternatives to you. You gave us approval to go out and discuss those alternatives with the public. We have developed and evaluated those alternatives since then, working with numerous agencies, communities, cities, and the public. That process resulted in the preliminary alternatives analysis, which we have presented to you for your review and approval. Let me point out that the Altamont corridor is a little bit special. It's a little bit different from the other corridors in the high-speed rail system. This corridor was studied in the initial analysis for the overall statewide system, but in that study it was found that the Pacheco Pass via Gilroy better served the overall system in its operations. However, during those studies, it was also found that better service in this region would contribute to better regional service as well as better statewide operation. And without having a map, I want to remind you that the main line going up to San Francisco on the west and the main line going up to Sacramento on the east are study areas between those two lines. So it does serve a statewide purpose as well as a regional purpose. And because of that, we wouldn't do it alone. This is a regional project that has a statewide function, but we can't do it alone. We have to work with our regional partners, with the communities, the agencies, and the people in this region of the state in order to better serve them and in order to build what's best suited for them. We wouldn't do this alone. We're in partnership with several regional agencies, and we are continuing to work with them as a team for this corridor. This corridor is a little bit different than the others in that we have an opportunity to build on an existing rail service. Altamont Commuter Express currently serves this corridor and provides 3 trains in the morning and 3 trains in the evening. We're working with our partners, including the San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission and its operating agency, the Altamont Commuter Express, to try to incrementally phase improvements to ACE to make this system work better as the high-speed rail system is building up around it so that it will be in a better position to feed and connect that system once it's up in place. We're looking at incremental phased improvements, and the region wants better service and wants better connections. In that light, we formed a coalition. You'll see the logos of several agencies that we are working with. This is the Altamont Corridor Partnership Working Group. We meet monthly, and we have been meeting monthly for about 2 years. We're working together as a team, and this brings regional and agency support and resources to our corridor that other corridors don't have. This organization meets once a month, and many of the representatives are here today. You heard from a few this morning, and I think you'll hear from more after I finish speaking. Again, the Altamont Corridor is a little bit special. It's a little bit different from the rest of the system. It has a different purpose and need. You'll notice in the list of purposes, every bullet has the word regional or region in it, because this does serve special regional needs. But as I explained earlier, by connecting the main lines, it serves a statewide purpose as well and provides the need for better statewide travel. This regional coalition is working together for improvement, but we understand that we have to have the support of the community as well. We've had a significant public outreach. We started with 4 large major scoping meetings in 2009. We received over 100 comments and over 30 maps suggesting to us what we should be looking at and how we should design these alternatives. The Ultramar Corridor Partnership Working Group has been leading this effort, but we've also been working with other municipalities, agencies, and stakeholder groups throughout the region while we develop these alternatives, refine them, and then finally we screen them so that we could get down to a reasonable set of alternatives to present to you. As was done in the other corridors, we screened these alternatives by looking at which ones best serve the purpose and need of the project. We want to maximize revenue and maximize ridership. And an important factor for this corridor was we wanted to maximize connectivity and accessibility because, as I said, this corridor serves a special connecting and feeding purpose in the system. We looked at what's constructible, what's feasible, what can be done, where right-of-way may or may not be available, and we considered, of course, natural resource impacts and impacts on the human environment and environmental quality. We did this process, as the other sections did, in order to eliminate high-impact alternatives and develop a smaller set of reasonable and practicable alternatives. Finally, I do have a map to show you our corridor, and as I reminded you, the main line serving San Francisco will be on the west, the main line serving Sacramento will be on the east, and this corridor bridges those two. It feeds into the main lines, and it serves to connect them. Next, I'm going to ask Brent Ogden to come up and walk us through the evaluation process. Brent is the project manager for the regional consultant.
Good morning, Chairman Pringle and members of the board. I'm going to launch into a discussion about the particulars of the alignment alternatives, but before I do that, I want to point out a couple of features about this corridor. This is a very long corridor. Its existing train is 87 miles, and the corridor options that we're studying range up to about 100 miles in length. So it's got many different areas as you move from east to west and west to east. The project would obviously then be implemented in phases, and there's some discussion about some initial phasing notions, both geographically but also in terms of levels of investment. So it's quite possible that with the clearance of the environmental document, the Altamont Commuter Express could pick pieces out of the document and do near-term improvements long before true high-speed rail service is provided end-to-end in this corridor. So that's a really important thing to recognize, that it would be phased. Also in conjunction with that phasing is the idea of trying to maximize the connectivity of the phases. And so the planning process to date has proceeded looking for connections to BART. The closest one that could be made coming in from the east would be in the Tri-Valley area in the vicinity of Livermore, and there are additional options to connect with BART in the Fremont and Union City vicinity. And by making the connections with BART, we also serve the East Bay better than we would because the alignment itself heads towards San Jose. The other issue about the corridor is that the purpose of the project is to provide separate passenger tracks from the existing Union Pacific freight operation, which currently hosts the passenger service. The Union Pacific Railroad actually responded affirmatively to our notice of intent to put together the environmental document by saying they support the effort to have separate passenger tracks in the corridor. And also, we are working closely with ACE, and ACE works on a regular basis with the UP, and because a lot of their improvements are actually built within the UP right-of-way. So what we're trying to do is parallel the UP right-of-way but not be within it. But there are some cases in which there would be some transactions with UP. So moving forward into the actual alternatives analysis, what we've done is we've divided this 100-mile corridor into a number of districts, and we've identified the alternatives within each district, and then we're evaluating those sort of at a district level. So the next step after this would be to assemble a true corridor-long alternative. My presentation is going to start at the west in San Jose and move towards the east. So this is the first district. This is San Jose to Fremont. San Jose is the left-hand side of the page, and Fremont is the right-hand side of the page. And as you can see, there basically are 3 north-south corridors, one along the bayfront, a second one in the middle following I-880, and then a third one to the east of I-80 paralleling the Warm Springs subdivision of Union Pacific. And then there are a number of cross-connectors. There were a total of 7 alternatives that were identified in this district. It's a pretty complicated piece of territory. What we are recommending in our report is carrying forward, first of all, this one, the red line, which goes parallels, it actually follows the Caltrain corridor around to the north side of San Jose Airport, and then it proceeds north to the Great America Station, which is the biggest ridership station of the existing ACE project, and then it swings east along 237 and then up 880 to the Warm Springs area. The second group that we're recommending to be carried forward is a pair of alternatives that come across the airport, the north end of the airport along Trimble Road, and one goes up 880 and one goes up paralleling the Warm Springs subdivision to the east of 880. And then as far as alternatives withdrawn, there are quite a number of alternatives that follow the existing railroad track beyond Route 237. The issue there is that these alternatives would be going right through the middle of the Don Edwards National Wildlife Preserve. And although the existing UP does have an operating track in that area, to build a whole new corridor parallel to them and cut right through the heart of a national wildlife refuge, we think is a near fatal flaw environmentally. Also recommended to be withdrawn is alternatives which try to go around the south side of the airport. The airport is very, very constrained, and there's also the Guadalupe River there, and these would need to be in tunnel all the way, at least as far as the 880-101 interchange. Very high-cost alternative, no opportunity for stations. So we're recommending to withdraw those alternatives. Then also there's another one that also goes around the south side of the airport that has, in addition to the problems that you have with the tunnel section getting around the airport, you also have impact to a residential area where you have to sort of carve through to get over to the railroad subdivision from the freeway corridor. So with those recommendations incorporated then, we'd be left with these three alternatives in the San Jose to Fremont district. Now I'm going to move to the next district. This is Fremont, Union City, and then going over to 680-84. The orientation of this map is that east is to the right, and the south at the bottom is Warm Springs, where we were with the other one, and at the north is Union City. This also sort of starts to show the phasing option. You'll notice that we have some lines that connect between 680-84 at the east end of Niles Canyon over to Union City. So that would be one of our potential stopping short options. If that were to happen, the project would have an interim terminal at Union City, and then proceeding further to San Jose would be a subsequent activity. If we are coming up from San Jose, however, we would be starting at Warm Springs and then heading off to the east to get over towards 680-84. In looking at this group of alternatives, we're recommending to carry forward this I-680 alternative. The I-680 alternative provides a very direct connection between the Warm Springs station location and the 680-84 location, which is the entry point into the Tri-Valley area. It would require tunneling underneath the steep portion of 680. Matter of fact, another thing I probably should have said about this corridor is we have a 700-foot range of hills between the Bay Area and the Tri-Valley, and we've got a 1,000-foot range of hills between the Tri-Valley and the Central Valley, and the Tri-Valley itself is ringed by a whole row of hills to the south. So there will be necessary to do tunnel construction to get through this topography. The second alternative that we're recommending to be carried forward at this point in time is an alternative to 680. In the event the 680 alternative is later found to have significant issues, we have an alternative that proceeds a little bit further north, paralleling the railroad corridor, and then heads east over to the Niles area. We are intentionally avoiding the existing railroad track which cranks through Niles Canyon. You can see that very circuitous black line up to the north there. That's the existing Niles Canyon. That's a very sensitive ecological area. So we have no alternatives that intend to go in and try to do construction in Niles Canyon. For service to Union City, we're recommending this option, and this would come in along the Union Pacific Railroad's Oakland subdivision. And this is one of these cases where there would be a transfer of railroad right-of-way. There actually are two railroad lines serving Union City. One to the east, which is the Niles subdivision, is the active railroad, and then the Oakland subdivision is sort of a secondary line, and it's proposed at this point in time to be purchased in conjunction with development of a new intermodal station at Union City as part of the Dumbarton Rail project. So in order for this alternative to be effectuated, this project would use the right-of-way that's provided by that purchase in conjunction with the Dumbarton project. Alternatives being recommended to be withdrawn in this district, first of all, the green line, which is the further extension of that line through Don Edwards. It's a very circuitous route, and also, of course, it has all the problems of Don Edwards because you have to go through the Don Edwards area to get to it. So it basically is withdrawn as a result of the decision to withdraw that alternative further south. Another one that's being withdrawn is this line here. This does follow the Nile subdivision, and in paralleling the UP, it would be having very, very large right-of-way impacts because there's been a lot of new high-density development built up along both sides of that railroad corridor. So with this area, then, we're carrying through three alternatives. Now we move to the Tri-Valley. The Tri-Valley area, this is, again, west to east, so at the lower left-hand corner is that 680-84 interchange location. You have Pleasanton, north of Pleasanton, you have Dublin. To the east, you have Livermore. And then the Altamont is off the page to the east. This is a very complicated territory, and also the planning for Tri-Valley proceeded in parallel somewhat with BART's efforts to identify a program alignment to serve the Tri-Valley area. BART currently ends at Dublin-Pleasanton up there, sort of up near the, there you go, that's the end of the existing BART. And that dotted black line shows the BART's chosen alignment coming down through Isabel 580, down to downtown Livermore, and then out to Vasco Road, and on to a possible yard site east of Vasco. So we were trying very hard to maximize the interface possibilities with BART. Now, since BART has finished their studies, and while ours were ongoing, they eliminated a number of alternatives. So some of our alternatives no longer really would make much sense because of some of the BART decisions, but we have alternatives that remain that do work with BART. So the first thing we're recommending to be carried forward is basically following the existing railroad corridor through downtown Pleasanton and downtown Livermore. As you heard before from one of the speakers, there are both above ground and below ground alternatives. There's an absolute right-of-way constraint in downtown Livermore. It's just not possible to get through if you stay off of the railroad corridor without having some major take, and that's why we're looking at a below-grade solution through downtown Livermore. But we're also looking at aerial solutions both in Livermore and in Pleasanton. One advantage that this alternative does have is because it follows the existing railroad track. If it were built incrementally, it'd be very easy for ACE to transition back to their existing alignment. Another one that we're recommending to be carried forward is the south of Pleasanton and Livermore alternative. And this actually follows a corridor of sorts. It follows 84, and then east of 84, it actually follows, there's an electric power line transmission, a whole series of towers that go through there as an electric transmission facility. Now, we would not be able to stay above ground for the whole distance because there also are park districts, there are interlocking park districts that must be crossed, and so we would have to put the alternative beneath where the parks are. So there would be a fair amount of tunneling involved in getting through the parks, and also to the south along 84, it's very, very hilly. But one advantage this clearly offers is that it makes the interface with BART near the Vasco Road station. It serves that emerging I zone for the city of Livermore, and then it quickly gets you down towards moving into the greater Bay Area. Recommended to be withdrawn is this green line, which is the 580-680 alternative. It is a lot of out-of-direction travel, costly construction, aerial the whole way in a freeway alignment, and then on the 580 portion it conflicts with the BART proposal. As it is, the freeway median is not wide enough for BART. They're going to have to move the freeway out just to be able to accommodate BART, partly because recently HOV lanes were put in the median of 580, and so for BART to go in, that has to actually be modified even just to get BART in there. Also recommended to be withdrawn was one that we were looking at potentially of staying in the UP active corridor, and that's a very costly alternative because of the spacing of the grade crossings. that exist in downtown Pleasanton, and they would have to be eliminated because the goal for the ultimate high speed is not to have grade crossings, and we basically have to take the UP down in a tunnel with us, and that's recommended to be withdrawn because of the high cost and the right-of-way risk. Another one that's recommended to be withdrawn is sort of a combination alternative that comes around 84 and then comes up parallel to Isabel Road and then rejoins the railroad corridor between Livermore and Pleasanton. We think there's a substantial amount of right-of-way risk on this alternative. There are quarry lands that are alongside this. The quarries fought the BART alignment successfully, and BART decided not to pursue trying to get quarry land for their extension, and we agree with that decision. So with those alternatives being removed, we're slimmed down to just basically 2 horizontal options with some sub-options on the vertical in the Tri-Valley area. So we've done quite a lot of winnowing, and we still would be able to meet BART. Then we finally get to the Altamont Pass, and we've combined Altamont Pass and Tracy here. Again, we're still going from west to east. This one's going to be very easy. We have 2 alternatives. We're keeping 2 alternatives, but I'll walk through them. The first alternative looking at is following 580, which sounds very plausible. Why not follow 580? It's an existing freeway corridor. One of the issues with the 580 that we still have to keep in mind is the fact that if you've driven that road, you know it goes up the hill at a very steep grade near North Flynn Road, and because the topography there, the tunneling along the 580 alternative is actually more extensive than the tunneling along this other alternative, which is Patterson Pass, that goes straight across. We actually have less tunneling with this option and still meet the grade criteria. And of course, it's more direct. But we want to have 2 options moving forward, so we're carrying 2. Then getting into Tracy, there are 2 options in Tracy again. There's one that goes through the heart of downtown Tracy that fits within a corridor that's about 300 feet wide, that's between existing developments. The UP has a secondary track in part of that 300 feet, but other parts of it are vacant. The city has built a new intermodal station right where we got our station dot there in anticipation of potential future rail service, and it serves an existing bus hub. And of course, we have the existing stop where ACE stops now in South Tracy, and this alternative parallels the UP, but it's south of it. Now that gets us then, there are none withdrawn, so we keep moving. Gets us to our last district. This is the most complicated one, Tracy to Stockton. So what we're looking at there at the left-hand side of the page, this is sort of oriented on the tilted orientation, so north is actually off to the upper right corner. So you're coming in from Tracy and you're heading both to Stockton and you're heading to Manteca and Modesto, because the proposal for Altamont service that ACE is pursuing would provide not only the ability to run a train from Stockton into the Bay Area, but also running a train from Modesto. So there's 2, it's like a Y. It's almost the same situation that you would have out in the Central Valley with the Merced, the Y south of Merced. So let's take it in pieces here. First coming from Tracy and through Lathrop on to Stockton. Let me see if I can get this. There we go. The first alternative follows I-5 along through Lathrop on the freeway corridor, and then it leaves the freeway corridor where the freeway starts bending around and rejoins the railroad corridor, and then follows in between. There are 2 lines of the Union Pacific that converge and come together in Stockton, and this sort of fits in between those 2 alignments, ending up in the railroad territory just as it meets the station, the existing station at ACE Station at Cabral. The second alternative that we're recommending to be carried forward is one that parallels the other railroad line, but it's east of the other railroad line. So this is the extension of that one that goes around the south side of Tracy, and it just follows that line to the east until it eventually comes up into the station area. And then we have a third one here, which is sort of an option of getting into Stockton via Airport Boulevard. That's if we have issues getting through the railroad infrastructure south of Stockton. We have this as an alternative to have something to work forward in case we can't get into the other corridor. We're recommending to be withdrawn this fourth option, which is a composite that comes through the heart of Lathrop and then goes on into Stockton paralleling the other railroad line to the west. The reason this is recommended to be withdrawn is that the Central Valley alternatives cannot meet this alignment. The Central Valley alternatives that are being separately looked at in a parallel process in the Merced to Sacramento project would include one that goes along the diagonal through Manteca, and that alignment cannot get over to that blue line there because that Sharp depot sits in the way, and that's U.S. DOD active military installation at that location. Now I'm going to turn to the service to Modesto. So one option is to parallel or basically go in the median of Route 120. Route 120 has a wide enough median to accommodate a rail line. It's fully built out on one half side of it, and there's plenty of room to still fit rail in between the two freeway lanes. So it would have a fair amount of at-grade construction, require some modifications to bridges, but otherwise would fit in there. And so that's a pretty elegant solution. An alternative that we're also looking at is continuing the 120 further to the east all the way out to Escalon. Now, this would be necessary if in the Sacramento Merced project, if Sacramento Merced ends up following the BN route, which is to the east of everything here, on up to towards Sacramento, then this blue line would be necessary to connect with the high-speed main line. And because we haven't made the choice on the main line in the Merced to Sacramento project yet, we still have to have a contingency for that in Altamont. And then finally, the last one that we're recommending be carried forward is one that, again, if the main high-speed line were to come up through the diagonal through Manteca, by simply providing a sharp turn back just south of Lathrop, we can turn back into it and get down to Modesto that way. Now, obviously, it has out-of-direction travel, but of course, it has tremendous cost savings. Recommended to be withdrawn is the one that comes off of the middle of the railroad track that sits between I-5 and the other railroad track. And again, that's the same issue there, that the main line of high-speed rail could never meet that, so it would result in duplicate trackage. So that then concludes the presentation of all the alternatives. So with those two being withdrawn, we'd end up with the remaining 5 here. So that's in summary, that's 100 miles of territory, 31 alignments evaluated, some 400 miles were screened. We are recommending to carry 19 segments forward. We screened 25 stations. We're recommending to carry 19 stations forward. And there it is all on one map. Just one last little thing I just want to give so our next steps, we've got public meetings scheduled to go out and present these results if you bless them. A supplemental AA if needed, subsequent fiscal year, and then forward work contingent upon funding. Thank you.
Very, very good. I know we have questions from members of the public, but I know Board Member Crane had a couple at this time. Mr. Crane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that latitude. So thank you for that presentation. I don't know how to evaluate all the engineering issues, and it's complicated to make a judgment about these sorts of things. So as usual, I'm going to fall back on the only thing I know, which is financing. This is something that gets financed in part by the bond, the $900 million or so that was issued for the
Yes,
for the bond,
and
right?
remember, this corridor is special in that we have regional partners. So we are also looking for funding from regional partners in addition to the state funding.
That's perfect, because that's what my question is about. So to what extent are your recommendations in this regard motivated by these alternatives producing the money that's necessary for this to happen? Money coming from those regional providers and others?
Well, it only happens if the money comes forward, so we're very motivated to find solutions that work for them.
Right. So in other words...
So, Mr. Crane, could I help on this?
Yeah, please.
I mean, this is a step along the environmental process as required under CEQA. Is that correct?
Correct.
So the evaluation of alternatives, even though there may be future financing of segments that would be considered for discussion, at this moment in time, the focus is the environmental clearance within the
Yeah, very much so. I mean, if every time I take another drive, it's not so much like it used to be, but I mean,
There literally are, you go into Google Earth and there are roads that are in Google Earth and Street View that aren't on the aerials. I mean, this has been a very rapidly developing area. Obviously, development has slowed down in recent years with the economic downturn, but right-of-way preservation is critical.
So let me, then the question I want to ask is this. Roughly speaking, what's the total cost of what we'll end up building here?
The total cost of this project, if it were built, is about $6 billion plus.
And the amount that then the state would be putting up would be roughly $1 billion,
well,
900 million.
I don't know whether the thought is that the state would actually put up construction money. I think.
But anyway, just roughly speaking, out of the bond, there's 900 million. So the way I can comfortably think about this is somebody else is going to have more skin in this game than we are, right? We'll put up 900 million. Somebody else is going to have to put up the other 5.
I don't know if it would be that others are putting up more skin, but what's particularly special to regard here is that others are putting up skin. In your other regions, you don't have regional support. You're not bringing resources or support to your building. Well, I don't think the state and the regions have agreed to the exact split yet. That's why I don't think I can answer your question exactly.
I got it. All right, thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Crane. I know, Mr. Crane, you had a 12 o'clock requirement back in the Bay Area, so we yeah, no, exactly. And I will make sure Ms. Galgiani knows you left before you heard her comments. At this point in time, if at the conclusion of the staff report, I thank you. Be prepared, but I would like to, I know we have a few members of the public who wish to be heard, and the first would be fine assemblyman from that general region, Ms. Assembly Member Galgiani. Following Ms. Galgiani, I'd like to ask Andrew Chesley to speak. Yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm actually here to comment on the last item that has to do with the SDVE program, the Small Business Enterprise Program.
So not 6, 7, right?
7, yes.
Very good. Then
if that's okay.
Would you like to wait?
I may.
No, but I don't want to mess up your schedule. All right, let's pretend we're on item 7 right now.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to join the other members of the board who would wish to create a DBE program which would include goals for minority and women-owned business enterprises. And I would hope that while the authority doesn't have the express ability to do that, I would encourage participation by broadening outreach to diverse markets. And one of the things that I had suggested earlier on was that the authority consider other best examples of programs throughout the state that have done a very good job. For example, the Expo line had created a goal methodology for their particular program. Also, I would encourage a reciprocity program by allowing the authority to utilize the certification directories of other entities such as the Department of General Services Office of Small Business List, and then encourages a plan for outreach to those small businesses who are actually on the DGS Office of Small Business List. And then finally, existing law sets forth provisions by which the Department of Transportation, Caltrans, can establish pre-qualified lists for architectural and engineering services. I would encourage the authority to also establish a pre-qualified list of small firms that possess the qualifications that the authority is looking for as they proceed in the contracting process. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I know your schedule allows you break out of your schedule to come to our meetings, and we appreciate your comments. So we will certainly put them in place for item number 7.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. And on item number 6, then is it Mr. Chesley? Following Mr. Chesley, Mr. Bruger. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Andrew Chesley. I'm the Executive Director for the San Joaquin Council of Governments in Stockton. On behalf of the COG Board of Directors and our Chair, Mayor Ann Johnston of Stockton, we wish to encourage you to today accept the recommendations of your staff regarding the Altamont Pass Alternatives recommendation. We are very interested in moving forward as quickly as possible through the environmental process to arrive at a course of action that both the authority and the regional partners in the area which includes the San Joaquin Council of Governments, can endorse and can quickly move to implementation. We have had an excellent working relationship with this authority and your staff over the course of the last 4 years. We anticipate that continuing into the future, and we look forward to the completed work on the environmental document based upon the alternatives that you will act upon today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dr. Bruger, and then Ms. Mortensen. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Chair Pringle, members of the board. My name's Dr. Terry Bruger. I am a writer on the existing Altamont Commuter Express, and I'm here to voice my support for the adoption of the preliminary alternatives analysis on the new Altamont corridor. I currently commute 4 hours every day going from my home in Tracy to Ames Research Center at Moffett Field. And I spend 3 hours of that on the train, another hour by bike to make the end connections. And certainly bringing in high-speed rail along this corridor is going to be a game changer in terms of how people live through the Central Valley, the Tri-Valley, and the South Bay. So in particular, I encourage you to look strongly at the EB4 alignment. I'm a little disappointed to see that the environmental impact analysis didn't allow for EB1 through EB3, but certainly the service to the Great America Station being able to serve both the east and west sides of the South Bay is critical to the commuters to be able to reach the largest number of employers there. So again, I encourage your adoption so that we can move forward on the Altamont corridor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was listening to what you're saying. I was at the, sometimes on this section people may be somewhat confused, as this is different than a lot of the other environmental work we're doing on the rest of the system. It is, I really think there's some great examples that could come from this where, in fact, it is much more of a partnership. One, because we are not going to pay for all of the work within this corridor, but the environmental lead that we're able to take in cooperation with those other transportation agencies along the way really are going to develop a full build-out concept that others will be able to invest in, as well as us, through the course of that build-out. So I wanted to kind of make sure I was properly calibrated on that, and that's why I was chatting with our CEO during your comments, so I apologize. Yes, Ms. Mortensen.
Well, Mr. Chairman, great segue into skin in the game, and as the Executive Director of ACE, I'm part of the skin that will be in the game with you. And yes, this corridor is different, and we've always looked at it from a commute-based perspective, which is kind of mostly focused in one direction. But there is a desire for the inner-city connections on either ends of the trunk line, and I think that is where your involvement has come into play. We do see a lot of skin coming at the regional level, but we also see access that you have through the bond funding and through FRA, and then we see the access through the local sales tax measure, some of the regionally based state money, and FTA. So we think when we marry all those together, which is going to be agony because everything is so stovepiped, but when we do successfully marry those together, we will have a very good opportunity to jointly develop this corridor. And we're doing our part to try to help explain to people the difference between the trunk line high-speed rail system and this complementary feeder. So we would support the staff recommendation today, and we'll continue to work on all of our behalf out in the community.
Thank you very much. Richard? Yes. Tomac. I'm sorry. Your last name's getting more and more fuzzy to me.
Sorry. Name is Richard Tomac.
Yes, sir.
President of the California Rail Foundation.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair and Board. I find myself in complete agreement with the work presented. And the conclusions, it's an entirely logical result. It's almost unexpected, compared to some of the debates about routing through other sections of the valley. in fact, conforms almost exactly with the CETEC report in the central section of it. CRF procured a private report on this Altamont corridor, and we had the same findings of from Fremont to essentially an area of Livermore, identical to this report. So I'm very pleased to see that you're considering it now. One of the things that I've been asked to speak on by Gary Patton of representing the Community Coalition on High-Speed Rail is that this is a valid corridor for consideration for high-speed rail. And what he says is, we believe that the authority has not properly considered the Altamont corridor as the most appropriate way for the proposed high-speed train project to connect the Bay Area to the Central Valley. You'll, in fact, undoubtedly remember the CCHSR is, in fact, litigating this issue with the authority in the context of a challenge, the environmental impact report prepared for the Bay Area to Central Valley portion of the system. Particularly since the authority has never prepared or utilized an adequate or accurate ridership model to forecast ridership in various segments of the proposed system, the choice of the Pacheco Pass route is flawed. As the authority looks at a different but related issue in the context of Agenda Item 6, we urge board members to review the CITEC study, which identifies a routing that we believe is better than the alternatives your staff will be presenting in some respects, and a routing that would permit future high-speed rail use of the Altamont corridor. The CITEC study is found online. The following location, it's at transdef.org. It also can be found at calrailfoundation.org. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So Mr. Cavazos, and then Mr. Duncan McFetridge. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Caleb Cavazos. I am a representative of Congressman John Garamendi. I'm here to express his support for the preliminary alternative analysis for the Altamont Corridor Rail Project. And I'd like to read a little bit of his letter. The Altamont Corridor Rail Project must be built to high-speed rail standards. The project would provide a critical link between the statewide high-speed rail system and Barton Livermore. I support the preliminary alternatives analysis report for the Altamont Corridor Rail Project being considered by the California High-Speed Rail Authority at the February meeting. I'd like to submit that.
Thank you very much. We'll accept it. And Mr. McFetridge, and then finally Mr. Thomas Donovan.
Mr. Chairman and members, Duncan McFetridge, representing the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. I'm an attorney and legislative advocate for the law firm of Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck. As you know, MTC has been actively involved working with the commission to develop plans for the Altamont corridor over the past few years to increase connectivity between Central Valley and Bay Area. The working group has made great progress in narrowing down the reasonable range of alternatives to carry out the subsequent EIR, EIS process, and we're fully supportive of going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Donovan. Is that you?
Donovan?
Yes. Oh, I did. Is that you?
Yes, it is.
All right.
I may have misjudged when I wanted to speak. I realized that most of the well-deserved pleasantries came your way at the beginning. So I've got a number of pleasantries that I'm going to withdraw right now.
Right. No, usually when they come to speak, people withdraw the pleasantries. You're right.
Okay. All right. But my comment relates to my area of expertise, which is utility coordination for transportation projects. And I urge the board to recommend the advance provisions be made to coordinate and mitigate the costs and potential delays associated with the relocation of existing utility facilities within a project's alignment. And, you know, I'm really reassured, having listened to your presentation. Utility relocation has often been a significant unplanned cost overrun or schedule buster when not fully addressed during the planning and early design stages. There have been university studies that have shown that for every dollar that's spent in utility coordination early in a project, over $4 in unnecessary costs are saved at the later stages. The board has the opportunity to be a leader in improved processes, to look around corners and to avoid problems before they occur, and I would recommend that the board pursue that as much as possible.
Thank you very much, Mr. Donovan.
Okay.
Any other comments on this item? Any comments from the board on this item? Yes, Mr. Kopp. Very good. Any other board comments? Mr. Kopp, please, you'd like to move the recommendation?
I would move acceptance of the staff report and adoption of its recommendation.
Very good. Motion by Mr. Kopp, second by Mr. Umberg. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none opposed. The item passes unanimously with Mr. Crane's absence. Therefore, without objection, I'd like to move to item number 7. Mr. Van Ark, would you like to introduce this item?
Mr. Chairman, you had requested and we had volunteered, in fact, some while ago at the board meetings that we would be looking into the development of a small business policy for the agency. You've heard a lot about it. You've heard a lot at previous meetings about it as well. And today is a day that we at least want to inform the board. This is an information item. This is not a decision item for today. We would like to inform you about the direction we would like to take. We would like it, of course, to be out in public in the meanwhile, which it is. It's on the Internet as well. And we recommend and would like to receive comment. And then at a future board meeting, we would be coming back to you and we would then recommend that you adopt this policy. So at this particular stage, it is an information item. And we have one of our colleagues, Rachel Wenninger. She is going to be presenting the issue.
Very good. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, members. The California High-Speed Rail Authority is planning and implementing a state-of-the-art high-speed rail system that will create business opportunities throughout the state. The authority follows the state of California's contract rules and regulations, including a small business and disabled veteran business enterprise policy, which we would like to continue with. This policy provides a 25% participation goal for certified small businesses and a 3% participation goal for certified disabled veteran business enterprises. California contract law is governed by Proposition 209, which generally does not allow state-funded agencies to use gender, race, or other accepted federal guidelines regarding socially and economically disadvantaged businesses factor in the RFP process. The authority has received federal funding under the Federal Railway Administration. The authority's funding partnership with FRA in the design and construction of the project has resulted in high-speed rails reviewing and updating contracting procedures to ensure that federal regulations are implemented. Although the FRA lacks a statutory disadvantaged business enterprise, which is for minority and women-owned businesses requirement, it requires compliance with Title VI, which includes encouraging participation by small business concerns owned and controlled by socially and economically disadvantaged businesses, including women and minorities. At this time, the authority wants to continue its current small business and disabled veteran business enterprise policy with its participation goals and commit to developing a process to ensure all communities reap the financial benefits of building this project with a diverse business participation outlined in state and federal laws.
Do you have any addition to that, Mr. Van Ark?
Mr. Chairman, the documentation was handed out to the members and also to the public today, and it was on the Internet. And again, this is an information item, and we would very much want to hear from public. We've already heard some comments this morning, but we would very much want to hear from public. We would like to hear also from public during the coming month to gather any further information from them.
And then with that, there would be a board policy brought back before the board for further action at a later meeting. Is that your intent?
That is correct, yes.
So today is to present where we are, hear that input. For example, the input of Ms. Galgiani, I think, was very important in terms of how do we ensure we're not recreating the wheel in all of these important areas. And in fact, a lot of other agencies within state government have established similar plans, some probably better than others, but to make sure we use registry, pre-established lists, and being able to build from that as opposed to start from the very beginning processes of development. Is that correct?
Correct. And we are working to set up a working group with different state agencies and specialists in this area to start developing a plan to go out, both with a very vigorous outreach program and also to use pre-existing lists that are out there and even current existing outreach programs that exist.
Mr. Van Ark, is it your intent to then collect information and have a policy back before the board at our next meeting?
Depending on the amount of information we receive, we could get it back by the next meeting, but at least within the next 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also like to add, we've been receiving a lot of support from other agencies. I think everybody understands our agency is very small,
Mm-hmm.
but we've been receiving a lot of support from other agencies, from Caltrans as an example. They've been working very closely with us as well. And our people have participated at their outreach meetings and have been able to establish how they do these outreach activities. So I'm really encouraged that we'll be able to move this forward now. Our big contracting is not yet in place. We don't have to do it yet. We have a bit of time to get this policy in place, but we want it in place before we start going out with our RFPs for the funded project for our construction.
Very good. Mr. Umberg.
Let me just add a couple personal comments. One of the immediate benefits of the project is the economic stimulus, and from my perspective, I think that perspective of a number of other board members, we want to make sure that underserved communities and disadvantaged communities participate as fully and as robustly as is possible, reaching out as far as we possibly can and moving as far as we possibly can, obviously in accordance with the law. But we want to be a model for the state of California. And so that would be my personal interest. And when the policy comes back, I'll be looking to make sure that we've accomplished those goals.
Very good. Ms. Schenk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And of course, I'll ditto and echo Mr. Umberg's remarks. And this is, I guess, state the obvious. We heard a lot of comments today, and Kathleen Galgiani's was directly on point. It is very, very important that we set the tone at the top. And at least for me, and I think I reflect the opinion of the others on this board, this is extraordinarily important. This is the biggest project, infrastructure project that California has had or possibly will have. And it is imperative that we think outside the box, that we do everything we can to include minority and women-owned businesses, that this be in the forefront of our mind in everything that we do with respect to contracting. As Tom Umberg pointed out in an aside, we're probably going to be sued, and I'd rather be sued for going too far rather than not going far enough. And we have another item coming up on this request for expression of interest, and looking at least the paper in front of me, I don't see a specific line item about outreach to this community of interest. And while there may not be someone big enough or whatever, it's important that everything we do reaches out with information and encouragement that we want this participation. Thank you.
Very good. Ms. Flores?
I also want to thank Assemblywoman Galgiani for her comments, and I agree 100% with Commissioner Schenk and Commissioner Umberg. I, too, want to make sure that we find a way to make sure that we include participation by these groups. I think it's very, very important. Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Kopp?
There's a interesting sentence in the staff report under disadvantaged business enterprise to the effect that CAHSRA is evaluating whether it can implement such a policy as it may conflict with California Ballot Initiative Proposition 209, as well as federal funding policies that guide the Federal Railroad Administration. Proposition 209, of course, is Article 1, Section 31 of the California Constitution. If this is a recommended policy respecting small businesses and disabled veteran business enterprises, how would that be prevented by the state constitution, so long as the state constitutional provision is adhered to?
What we can do at this point, unless the federal funding that we receive has a specific DBE requirement, we cannot initiate one of our own. But we can have a very robust outreach to all businesses of all diversities. We can include them so that they know the type of contracts that are available, so that they could know what type of contracts that they could bid for. We can have set up connections so that they can connect with primes that might be bidding on those contracts, or other firms that they might be able to work in coalition with to get the contract awarded. So we can do a lot of very outreach to all types of businesses, small businesses, DBBEs and DBEs, to let them know all of the opportunities in the contracts that we have.
There's nothing in Article 1, Section 31 which prohibits outreach, of course, but there's nothing in it which prohibits specific preferences to small businesses and disabled veterans business enterprises.
At this time,
is there?
We have to be cautious about setting actual participation goals.
That's correct.
Right.
But as it is written, there is nothing to prevent small business and disabled veteran business enterprises policy of preference.
Right. We do, and we do have.
In relation to any state statutes.
Right. So we do have, right, we can have the 25% small business and 3% DBE.
Without risking a lawsuit.
Without risking.
Which I don't want to risk.
Right. Well, and even if we do have DBE participation goals in the future, it will still probably be recommended to continue with a 25% SB participation and 3% DBE participation, that those participation levels will not decrease.
Okay.
Very good. I know we have two members of the public who wish to also be heard on this item, so may I invite forward Julian Cantu and Mr. Chris Coles.
Good morning. Julian Canetti, Chief Executive Officer, California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, for this opportunity to address you. And I thank Rachel Winninger for the job that she did in the draft proposal of the policy. First of all, let me commend the board on taking the steps to implement a small business enterprise, disabled veteran business enterprise policy. And let me offer the support of the CHEC and our willingness to assist this board and your staff in any way possible to make sure that we come up with a policy that is beneficial to all Californians and give everybody the opportunity to benefit from this huge infrastructure project that we have before us. I do have a few comments on the proposed policy. First of all, the CHEC understands the varying lines of funding that high-speed rail now receives or will receive in the future, and we know the goals and the non-goals that go along with those funding sources. But we do believe that all those goals should be listed in any type of policy or non-goals that go along with them so the public knows it, this board knows it, and the goals that need to be met. We also feel that the board should set higher goals than the 25% and 3% goals that are proposed. What that number should be, we don't know yet, but I think as some of the commissioners alluded to, let's aim high and let's include more small business participation in these contracting opportunities. We also recommend that the policy address the establishment of a technical assistance and training program for small business and disabled veteran enterprises so we can be successful in meeting the goal. This would include things like how do you compete competitively for high-speed rail contracts. It would also include things of connecting our small business owners with other prime contractors so that they become subs to them as well. We feel that the policy should address and state how this board is going to monitor compliance with those goals as well. Finally, staff included attachment C. And I think one of the commissioners alluded to it on the Prop 209 language. I urge staff and the board to review Government Code sections 11-139.C, 11-139.6, and 11-139.7, which addresses engaging in an inclusive public sector outreach program. I think another program that you may want to look at is the California Public Utilities General Order 156, which addresses voluntary minority and women and veterans participation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Coles, and then I know we have a couple other folks that wish to be heard. Mr. Guerrero again, and Mr. Ribbons. Yes, sir, Ms. Coles.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board, again, for entertaining my comments. I just have a couple of comments to make. First of all, I am DVBE number 91. I've been in the program for 20 years, and my observation has been that where there is clear emphasis and clear direction from the top in an agency, this program works. And it has gone, my experience, from being a joke 20 years ago, a sad joke for me, to being something real. And so I would encourage the board to make that point of emphasis if it wants to encourage DVBEs and if it wants to meet the performance marks that are set down in the law. The second thing is I appreciate Judge Kopp's mentioning the basic law because it addresses some concern of mine. I want to point out to the board that California SBEs, small businesses, there's a lot of overlap between the DBE and the SBE. Most DBEs are eligible to be California small businesses. However, the overlap between DBE and disabled veteran businesses is far, far less. So if the board were to adopt a strictly DBE approach, which I don't think you're entertaining at this time, if you were to do that, however, that would essentially eliminate the DVBEs in the great majority of DVBEs from participating. And I don't think you want to do that. I'm only addressing this because there are a lot of popular misconceptions. I get phone calls all the time wanting to know if I'm a DBE that can participate. I'm not a DVBE. I'm not a DBE. I'm a DVBE. And so I want to be sure that in your consideration of this issue, you remember that the DBE approach eliminates DVBEs in great majority. That's all I have.
You know what? I even followed you.
You did.
I think that's really something. Thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Guerrero, and then Mr. Ribbons.
Yes, I just want to make a couple of comments.
Yes, sir.
On what I heard recently. I want to point out that the government code, an approximate area of 1,400 in the California government code, in 2000, the small business program was incorporated as state law. Okay? And it allows the agencies to set a goal. And the goal right now presently is by executive order. Gray Davis issued the first executive order of 25%. Most states agencies are meeting it. Now, I heard a comment, well, when we get to the construction, the goal covers purchase of material, A&E type projects. I gather that this presentation was made by a contractor or subcontractor of the proposed right-of-ways. That was a right-of-way agent. Did he have 25% on his contract? That's the question that we're asking, because he should have. There should have been some outreach. He should have conducted outreach and brought that 25% into you. Okay, we don't need a study to do that. It's already codified. And I believe you've let a lot of other contracts. So I just want to make it clear that there is a 25% goal. It's state law, and state law calls for a small business participation. And all we're asking is that you're a recipient of state dollars, that you follow the law and do some outreach, and they have the contractors do the outreach and report back to you. That's part of their bid, is to do that outreach. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rivens.
Yes, thank you. I'm encouraged by the comments that I heard a couple of commissioners make. First of all, I'd like to say that because it is important, and this is probably going to be the major economic stimulus program in California's history, and it is, again, an opportunity for inclusion of all Californians and Americans, or should be, that want to have the opportunity to participate and the capability. Even recognizing that there are some barriers that keep some businesses from participating, I think Assemblywoman Galgiani's comments and what she's proposing is extremely important, because one of the barriers is the fact that you got to go to this agency or that agency, or one agency doesn't want to recognize the other agencies, and that in itself has a tendency to slow down the process or cause people to not participate. I think when we talk about Proposition 209 has caused many minority businesses and disabled businesses, veteran businesses, to not participate because the opportunities were not there, or companies have not, in fact, did any type of outreach, and even to the degree that it was neutral or race neutral. There is nothing wrong with targeted marketing, because business does it in America every day. McDonald's is on TV, target marketing our children and fattening them up every day. So we don't have a problem with targeted marketing, except when it comes to inclusion of minority business enterprise in America. I'm not saying that to knock folks. I'm saying that this is an opportunity for us to make sure that everyone is included. If we're talking about 75% of the business, and probably more like 90 to 95 still, going to large industry, then there's something wrong when we don't want to include a small percentage of the business population in our state, when they are the ones that in fact hire the people that most often don't get an opportunity to have jobs. So I would encourage and urge you all to please take into consideration a minority business enterprise program with goals, and it is goals, and Prop 209 does not preclude it, but we want to say that Prop 209 keeps us from doing business with minorities. But in fact, if we follow the laws that the courts have set, we can in fact, and have proven that in California there is some disparities and discrimination, so we can do something that's inclusionary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Dearden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd first like to explain to the board members that I'm not being disrespectful in wearing my informal attire. I'm going fishing. And in other words, you want to rub it in our nose. Thanks a lot. Absolutely. Second, and on the issue before you, may I really offer a plea to the board that you not be restricted by caution in this issue. This is one of those issues where if you have to press the envelope a little, it's time to press the envelope. You're going to be sued. The issue isn't whether or not you're going to be sued, it's whether you're going to win the suit. And so if you're going to have to fight the battle, fight it over something worth fighting, because the folks that have come before you today have long been the last on the food chain in our state, and this is an opportunity to catapult them up into equality. And please do show courage.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion on this information item from board members? Seeing none, we will accept this information item and look forward to the policy coming back before the board. Before we move to item, for the balance of the items on the agenda, I know one gentleman wished to speak, I think more on in a general purpose, so I want to make sure I take him now. Mr. Powell? Yes, sir.
I thank you for that courtesy. I didn't know how to fill out the card. I probably should put checked item 1 instead.
You probably should have, and I just realized that now. Okay. But yes, I want to make sure you're heard.
Well, I was going to speak to the item 10, the CEO's report, but either past reports or the current one.
Yes.
And I just asked that the report today and future ones note problems with this project instead of just its successes. I read a lot about this project, and some of the examples I can come up with are trying to come up with a realistic financing plan to stretch the bonds. We tout how we get some money from the feds and how we're going to use state bond money, but don't mention that we're using about a third of it right now in one segment, and as a result, we would use it all in the Central Valley. Also on cost escalations. I think that segment you're building for $5.5 billion was estimated to cost $3.6 billion a year ago in the report to the legislature. And I'm still interested in learning more about ridership and how you're going to clear up the questions about the ridership estimates. I don't think there's any guidelines yet from the FAA how we construct one of these trains that runs over 150 miles an hour. And so I just have a lot of questions, and I'd like to be sold on high-speed rail, but I'm not getting it from the information I'm getting from the board. So I thank you for your time and the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, sir. All right, it brings us to the legislative update. Actually, you know, what this gentleman said, I had seen a similar type of comment made, and that dealt with some of the Central Valley segments that we put in our ERA application. And when we put in those segments in the ERA application, the dollars that were being sought for those segments are now being equated to the project, the first construction phase that we're talking about. And somehow people are saying that you're buying the exact same thing. But the ERA application was from one point to the next, and in most cases in the Central Valley, it was, for example, north of Bakersfield, south of Fresno, never entering into the major cities. And in the northern section of the ERA application, from Fresno to Merced, it was north of Merced, south, or north of Fresno, south of Merced, never entering into those major cities. So the full cost that now is somehow being compared apples to apples is not, because the section that was approved was basically south of Madera to just north of Bakersfield, but it does address areas within Fresno and the connectivity to that city. When you build in around urban developed area, you have more road crossings, you have more access issues, and therefore the cost is higher. But you can't take one estimated application request for the ERA segment between Merced and Fresno, or the ERA segment request between Fresno and Bakersfield, and somehow say that what we are doing today is exactly the same as what we requested in the ERA application. Therefore, just by determination, the price went up in that segment. We're building different things. We are building completely through the community in Fresno and addressing all of those additional costs. So it isn't an apples-to-apple comparison. So some look to try to say that that's exactly the same product being purchased. It's not. So I think our ERA application is public and available for people to see what we were proposing to have funded within that ERA application, as well as the final agreement with the FRA that was completed before the end of the last calendar year, before December 31st. That application is what the board voted on twice in December, And in fact, that's available for public review. And if you do look at those two items, you'll see that the ERA application includes many of those components, but not all of those that were in the final approved proposal of the board in December. So it's really hard. So on the question, costs jumped within a year. What was in each of those different applications weren't the same thing. Therefore, you can't say that is an apple-to-apple comparison. So just on that point, I would express a little caution to really look what is apart, because every time you cross another road, every time you directly access into a city, those are additional cost factors that must be taken into consideration. We have the completion of our agenda with the legislative update. Mr. Van Ark or Mr. Barker, were you going to make the legislative update for us? Thank you. On item number 8.
Morning, board members. I'll keep this brief. You have a briefing in front of you that just runs down the current pieces of legislation that have been introduced related to our project. It's still early in the legislative session, so these are just bills as introduced. So for that reason, we're bringing it to you as an informational item, not asking you to take a position or to weigh in on any of the bills at this moment. We are working with a number of the authors on some of the legislation that is outlined in front of you as they move forward and prior to them being even heard in committee. I'll call out a couple of bills. Many of them are familiar that we've seen over recent years. There is one I think clearly have a statement on already, which is Galgiani's AB 58, which would allot to the authority several exempt positions, similar to a piece of legislation that moved last year that was not controversial and was supported. Additionally, there are a couple of bills, one in the Senate and one in the Assembly, that would seek to strip additional bond funding from the project, and I think it's probably pretty clear from this authority that we would not support those bills as they are currently written. Other than that, we have a bill deadline in about 2 weeks. We expect more pieces of legislation to be introduced by that deadline, and of course we'll continue to update you and bring you back this as an action item when there's a position to be taken on some of those bills. So that's brief unless there are questions.
Very good. Any questions on legislative issues? Mr. Humbert.
Yes, thank you. With respect to the two bills that you outlined, I don't know why we don't just go ahead and take a position right now that basically defunds what we're trying to do.
Right.
I don't know if we need to have it agendized to take that position or not, but
it's not agendized to take action on this, but as I say, I think it's pretty clear that we would not support. You're speaking of AB 76, which is by Assemblymember Harkey, and there's also Senate Bill 22 by Senator LaMalfa.
Right. And I can't imagine the circumstance where we'd be supportive, so we might as well take an opposed position at this point unless there's some other impediment to that.
Do we have a legal, I'm sorry? Therefore, a decision is that since that's not listed as an agenda item, it's not something that is properly before us. So at our next meeting, why don't we, on any future legislative update, and at the beginning of a legislative session, things change fast.
Right.
But why don't we just list the bills on the agenda under the word legislative update, and we always will have an opportunity, therefore, to take a position or action on any of those bills listed. Yes, Mr. Humphrey.
That's it.
Very good. Ms. Shank?
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. But in addition to that, can you just sort of enlighten me about what we do staff-wise in working with authors to, I mean, some of these bills seem to me are just coming at us out of a vacuum. Are we in touch with their staff or with the legislators to help them along or educate them, obviously not on the one that wants to eliminate us, but on other bills where we might be supportive or neutral with some tweaks or otherwise be helpful to us?
Absolutely. We do work on a staff level, especially with our transportation committees, with the staff there, and in many cases we work with bills prior to them being introduced. In many of these cases, we have sought to meet with the members and at a staff level. For example, Assembly Bill 31 by Assemblymember Bell, which relates to some station area planning. We've met with Assemblymember Bell, and we will continue to work with staff to help shape the bill moving forward. A number of bills you see here are authored by Assemblymember Galgiani, and we work very closely with her office and help shape those moving forward as well. So largely on a staff level, but on significant legislation, we do seek to have a meeting with the Assemblymember or the Senator as well.
On some of these, as we learned last year, there were bills that seemed well-intentioned and were a good idea sort of in a vacuum, but were not good ideas, practically speaking, and from the experience of many of the members of this authority. I would like to see us engage a little bit more in terms of not just at the staff level, but having some discussion about these bills as they come up, because, as I say, everybody has a different experience level. Of course, Commissioner Umberg and Pringle and Quentin Kopp and others as well, myself with some small experience in this. So I'd like to see us included more rather than just passively say, well, we support it or we don't support it.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any other comments on the legislative update? Thank you, Mr. Barker. Now, if without objection, we'll go to members' reports. A couple things I would like to bring forward. I know, according to our policies and procedures, the chair has the discretion to establish committees. I know because of a couple new members of this board, we needed to reestablish that. I did not bring that up earlier under item number 3, and I'd like to address that now. I'd like to offer for the establishment of committees, maintaining the 3 committees that we presently have. One, the Executive Committee, of which I'd like to recommend myself, Ms. Shank, Mr. Toledo serve on the Executive Committee. The Operations Committee, I'd like to recommend Mr. Umberg, Mr. Burns, and Ms. Flores serve on the Operations Committee. And for the Finance Committee, I'd like to recommend Mr. Crane, Mr. Richards, and Mr. Kopp serve on that Finance Committee. Therefore, if there is any member concern, expression, change, or desire other than what's listed, if in fact that could be presented or shared with me before our next meeting, it is the responsibility of the chair to establish a time in which their committee can meet. So I'd like to ensure that I will work with the staff as well as Mr. Umberg and Mr. Crane to ensure that all of those committees have a chance to meet in the next prior to the next meeting. And Mr. Van Ark, I hope we, working with staff, we can establish the timing for those committee meetings. All right. Additionally, I'd like to ask the board to return back to item 4. I do see that our October meeting is presently scheduled the day before Yom Kippur, and I would like to see if we could adjust that October meeting maybe further earlier into September, so we do miss a few holiday dates. Would there be any objection to move the October 6th board meeting, and I apologize for reopening this, back to September 22nd? Well, 29th. So if we could do that on the 22nd, is there any concern with that? So by doing that, we only had this calendar and adjusted 3 of the meetings for the year. We're making progress. Very good. And I don't have any other item. Any other member of the board have any additional item? Mr. Umberg?
Just a brief report. There's been a new chair appointed to the Senate Transportation Committee, Senator DeSaulnier, that we met with. He seems to be very supportive, and we welcome Senator DeSaulnier to the club here. Also, we met with Speaker Perez, and he was expressive of his support. And a special thank you to Assemblymember Galgiani, who's not here, who during the hearing, for example, in Senate budget hearing, as well as the Assembly Transportation hearing, she participated and was quite helpful to our cause. That's it for my report.
Very good. Ms. Shank, any additional report? Ms. Flores, any additional items to report?
No, but I do want you to clear up the October meeting.
If we could, the proposal was not to have September 22nd, will be the October meeting. Very good. Mr. Cobb?
I just have one question of Mr. Van Ark. In the FRA grant cooperative agreement, there's a reference to financial plans. And have those been provided yet to the FRA?
You're talking about the AHSRA agreement?
Yeah.
We supplied financial plans for the AHSRA application, and it's, in my opinion, that agreement is signed and completed. It is
and was accepted.
And was accepted. Yes.
Okay. Can I get a copy of the plan?
Anything else, Mr. Cobb? Mr. Richards?
I wanted to congratulate staff on the outreach on the Altamont corridor and encourage that outreach continue now that the EIR process will move forward and thereafter. And it would also encourage staff to maintain that sort of outreach in the other sections and areas and segments even as we move through the EIR process, that period that everybody gets very concerned about what's happening and thereafter. That's it. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Toledo? Very good. Now is item number 10 is our Chief Executive Officer's report. And I think you are taking to heart Mr. Powell's comments that you will not just paint a rosy scenario, right?
You're quite right, Mr. Chairman. I believe I have put quite a few critical items forward in the past, and I will continue to do so, because there definitely are some. Anyway, I will start with some positive ones, because I do think that we must not forget we're part of the United States of America, and I must say it was very encouraging to note that President Obama clearly singled out investment in high-speed rail in his State of the Nation speech, and more importantly so, that he even singled out California, high-speed rail, and of course the Midwest as well, as projects that are ready to go. The House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee Chairman, Mr. John Micah, a Republican from Florida, has announced hearings, as you know, and the hearings should take place during February. A time slot for California has been announced as being most likely between the 21st and 23rd of February, and as they will be moving up and down the west coast of the United States. So we do not have all the details on that yet, but they were looking at various locations to have these hearings. I think it's very encouraging, because we need to have more interface with people that are really supportive of high-speed rail. On the outreach side, I think Tom Umberg has already mentioned to you that he, Chairman, and other members have been very active as well, and we continue meeting with people in the legislature. We also spoke together, Tom Umberg and myself, Member Umberg and myself, to the Select Committee on High-Speed Rail. I participated, as I do on a monthly basis, with the CEOs of the Southern Californian region and try and retain a good working relationship with them, because it is obviously a very important section, not the only, but they are the furthest away from Sacramento, so it's important to keep contact with them. You had heard mention of the Chinese delegation. It is not the only one, but I was very involved with the delegation also in Fresno. But I think also I saw some of our Japanese suppliers and embassy people here. They set up a very good forum on January the 14th in Los Angeles. I think there were more than 400 people that participated in that to inform us here in California about the advantages of high-speed rail and really what high-speed rail could bring to our state and to our nation. And I think there was a great performance by them. We've been, as you heard, meeting with many people, also people in the Capitol. Senator Curran Price and others, the Tri-Caucus as an example, on issues of small businesses and the development of our policies, and making sure that we reach out and make them understand that we are not a closed shop. We're going to be open about these issues as we move forward to putting this policy in place. I've been meeting to try and ensure that people understand that we are there to discuss things with the cities of Gilroy and Morgan Hill. A few times I was there again on the 25th of January, and just to make sure that our teams will continue to have the outreach and technical meetings with those areas, and that there's a combined attempt to optimize the route and the path of high-speed rail through everywhere difficult territories. The various countries continue to remain very active. We met with the Consul Generals of Germany and the United Kingdom, who are showing great interest also in what's happening in our project. The professional engineers in California government had meetings with us, as did labor union leadership, and all show a lot of support for the future of the project. And also members of our team, of our technical team, participated in an important meeting. I was snowed out, unfortunately. Important meeting in Washington, D.C. I heard a statement being made about we do not yet even know what type of equipment we should be supplying. In the United States, it was not pointed at us in California, but yes, we're working with the FRA. This workshop was about that. How do we optimize high-speed rail so that we make sure that we do not reinvent the wheel, and that we really have the right technology to be able to operate successfully, proven technology at 220 miles an hour. So apparently, although there was a lot of snow outside, it was still a very good session that they had out there, and I was glad that some of our people could make it. On the official outreach side, there were 47 meetings that were held this month. That means the month of January, a bit of a slow start because January is always a bit of a quiet time. You have read in the press, and we will discuss in closed session, that we are in discussion with the LA MTA regarding the acquisition of the LA Union Station site and, of course, real estate that's on it. And this is for the purpose of right-of-way preservation. This details will be discussed with the board after this in closed session. A budget update. We have had meetings, hearings with both the Assembly and the Senate at this particular stage. I cannot tell you everything about I could tell you, but I think the important thing to say at this stage is we need to go back. It is not because we got pushback, but because of the dynamics of the project. There are many aspects of the budget that need to be revised as we are relooking at reprioritizing the sections within the alignment. And we are having to thereby also have more discussions with Caltrans and Caltrain and other partners of ours, and modify or adjust our budget for the May round of meetings and hearings. And I believe that everything is fine. The meetings went fine. It was okay. And we have to go back for the second round. It is not uncommon, and it's quite a normal process. So we will update you as the process continues. On the financial consulting services side, unfortunately, we had a bit of a movement there. I'd like to provide a brief update to the selection process for the qualified vendor to fulfill the requirements of the RFP and this financial consulting services. You may recall, members of the board, that as a result of the RFP we released last fall, that the authority received several, in fact 5, qualifying proposals, which were independently scored and ranked. Your prior delegation afforded me the latitude to enter into discussions with the top-ranked firm, PricewaterhouseCoopers, in an effort to reach an agreement suitable to both parties. An area that has been the focus of our discussions, in part, was with the number 1 ranked firm, has dealt with the state standard terms and conditions. The state's terms and conditions are strictly enforced by the Department of General Services, and understood to be non-negotiable. In the event our discussions with the number one ranked firm do not result in an agreement satisfactory to the state, I wish to advise the board that it will be my intent to conclude these discussions and to commence negotiations with the next highest ranked firm. I'm confident that we can bring this issue to a satisfactory conclusion over the next days, thereby providing the authority with financial consulting services critical to the success of this project. During our last board meeting, Member Kopp requested from me from us some information regarding the number of lots and takings that may be affected in the initial construction section in the Central Valley. Although the information I'm giving today is very provisional and only indicative, as you can understand, there are still many options and environmental options open, and for that reason, these can only be indicative figures because every option has a different number. But we can confirm that the number would be around about 1,000 takings, of which approximately 20% would be full parcel takings, and approximately 80% would be partial takings. An update on some of the schedule issues, because we had, when we looked at the board meetings for the year, and I think this is important also for our board, they must understand, or we must all understand, that the schedule for this year is an important one, and there are a lot of board decisions that are going to be required. You understand that clearly we need to achieve the rod nod, which is with the activity of the board, for the two valley sections in the fall of 2011, so towards the end of 2011. This will allow for the contracts to be placed for the initial construction section by mid-2012. As you know, that is our planning. To meet this date, the authority is planning to issue a request for expression of interest, or we call it RFEI in our industry, to interested parties sometime within the next 2 weeks, with the aim to collect further data and from the market and to judge the interest of the industry. By the way, also in this RFEI, we also refer to questions on small business enterprises and that type of thing, so it's another mechanism to collect data from the industry side and the supplier side. Following the return of this RFEI information to the authority, it's our intention to issue an RFQ, or a request for qualification to the market, for the Central Valley initial build section, approximately in the middle of the year 2011. This will be used to pre-qualify interested bidders, or bidder consortiums, obviously, for the construction of this initial construction section in the Central Valley. Following this pre-qualification, the authority will go to the market at the end of the year with the next one, with the RFP, or request for proposal, which will lead to one or more contracts for work, and these contracts would be placed for the Central Valley section during the second half of 2012. To meet these various funding requirements, particularly to meet the funding requirement, particularly the release of Prop 1A bond funds, the authority will need to submit the required funding plan to the legislature by early October 2011. To meet this requirement of the Senate Bill 783 out of the 09-10 session, the Ashburn Bill, the authority will need to submit a revised business plan by January the 1st, 2012. A draft of this plan needs to be made public 60 days before the hearing, and therefore we are aiming to have this draft available also at the beginning of October 2011. To meet the requirements of both a funding plan as well as a business plan, the authority will have to bring to the board sometime in March or April our first ideas on initial operable segments and the build-up towards the business plan and the funding plans. Another issue I would recommend to the board, and that is, and this is for clarification in particular for the two ARA sections that did not make the funding cutoff in the first round. That means San Francisco, San Jose, and Los Angeles to Anaheim. These two alignments are technically quite challenging, and I think we all know that, and the people that are involved know that as well. Furthermore, both of these sections where high-speed trains are actually operating at very reduced speeds, and in one of the alternatives, in fact, it could be a shared right-of-way, they offer great opportunity for phased implementation that can also bring benefits to existing services. We will be working with local and regional agencies and with the communities to incorporate a phased implementation approach into the project environmental documents while ensuring, and this you must hear and must understand, you must understand this, while ensuring that the environmental documents would continue to portray the full build-out of the section as well, as this is required by law. That means although we will incorporate a way of putting a phased implementation in place, the documents and the CEQA requirements are such that we have to continue working on the full build-out of this section for CEQA and NEPA clearance. Considering this, and as these sections are no longer error sections, we recommend that the draft EIR not be issued before the end of 2011 for these two segments. This will allow all stakeholders to participate to their full extent in further investigations in the development of the alignments, and some of the technical complexities or operational complexities can be further analyzed. I'd like to talk on the FPPC issue relating to past travel, reporting of the authority board members and senior staff. This has been in the press all over, and you have been advised thereof. But I would like to advise you now that the FPPC has written letters to all the affected board members, as well as to Mr. Mehdi Morshed, the former executive director of the authority, with the following content, and I quote, "Our investigation determined that there was no evidence that you committed a violation of the Act. As a result, we are closing the case without taking any further action." Close quote. On meetings with the FAR, next week is a full week meeting between the authority and the FAR, between February the 7th and the 11th. And the FRA will be visiting us to do project review and to do expert analysis of the Central Valley section and the construction issues relating to the Central Valley. So full week for authority, consultants, and the FRA, who are very supportive. Staffing of the authority, unfortunately the situation with respect to the hiring of exempt staff as well as the increase of state staff and competent additions to our team has not been resolved, neither in the legislature nor in the governor's office. The situation is critical as work at the authority continues to increase exponentially. So we look forward, and we are trying to work with all legislators to try and move this issue. And I know I see many faces in the audience here that have sat with me in the budget meetings and other meetings as well. And you know we are trying, but we are definitely restrained. And but we will continue to try and resolve the issue. I'm nearly there, Mr. Chairman. I would like to just have a brief moment to introduce Mr. Tim Einer, sitting on the right here. He will be working for you and with us as the new board secretary, together with Lisa Toof, who has already been supporting you over time. So I just wanted you to be aware of Tim Einer, who's available for your needs as well. And I would also like to make one more statement. You may well make it, Mr. Chairman, but the next board meeting, which is in March, is in Los Angeles, in fact. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that, so that at least in pre-planning, you could plan that accordingly. There was a schedule distributed when we started planning these sessions, Member Schenk, which had actually the locations on the bottom of the schedule when we started trying to locate dates for for board members, or for the board meetings, which culminated in today's situation. And reason was, sorry if I may say, we intend to try and accumulate LA-related environmental issues to that meeting so that the locals can participate more freely at that meeting.
Does that conclude your report?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Very good. I had a few additions. Yes, Ms. Shank?
Just a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
We asked him to recirculate those dates where we're not going to meet the second.
Very good. Thank you very much. We'll do that. Your report probably should be reviewed by everyone online so that they hear it again, because there was a lot of data and information there. To refocus on a couple points, you did suggest, Mr. CEO, about you used the word takings in the Central Valley as a response to the amount of properties impacted and the potential for acquisition. But in every public project, particularly as I've come to find out, every land-based transportation project, it has one sticky requirement, and that is that it has to be attached to the land. And therefore, when you talk about the full first construction segment in the Central Valley, how many properties may or may not have or be impacted, I don't know if we should use the word taking as opposed to be impacted or need to have acquisition or acquired. Through all of my past history of serving on various transportation boards and other local government positions, of which most people now are very well familiar, most transportation projects where there is a land acquisition needs, the public agency can acquire that land. And only a very small portion of those acquisitions go to the next step, defined as taking. So I would, I can see those detractors of this system would probably write up that line of yours as the authority proposed taking of over 1,000 properties in the Central Valley. That's different than the authority realizes going over 100 miles of distance in the Central Valley. There may be 1,000 properties impacted, of which we will eventually need to negotiate with those property owners on a fair market value acquisition of any of those assets.
It's clear, Mr. Chairman, and maybe your English and my English are different sometimes.
Yes.
But the intent is not.
Yes.
These are not takings by force. These are takings by the fact that they are that they will be affected.
Yes.
Therefore, it is our full intent to find any negotiated settlement and agreement to acquire or compensate as we need to.
Sure.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sure. And further, I think you made a really important point that I know over the last few months a lot of people either missed or wanted to miss. And that is when we first started talking about where we were going to invest money for construction. We talked about the first construction segment. Right now, we are looking to spend federal and state resources for the first area of construction to be in the Central Valley. But that is very distinct from where there will be the first operable segment. The first operable segment is where we will determine that operational revenues will be able to pay for the service, and it'll include that first construction segment, but we don't know exactly which major points will be connected, because in fact that is a component of ridership modeling, of further financial analysis of which segment, that first operable segment, will be designated. Now, we know that we need to come up with that first operable segment to be able to access the state bonds. So that is one of our most critical jobs, I believe, in this next year. But it's interesting to have people inquire, why don't we have that knowledge right now? One of the reasons is we don't have a financial advisor right now. And we, even though we have authorized bring on board a team to provide financial support and services through negotiation, we have not been able to get that contract resolved for the last couple months. So it's awfully hard to be able to have all the information that some in the legislature and otherwise will ask us to have available to determine where that first operable segment will be before we have the financial resources and the financial team in place. So that is something that hinges upon this contract, be it with a Price Waterhouse or with the others in the ranked bidding order. And I believe we just need to ensure that we bring on that team as quickly as possible. If you suggest that we may start discussing the first operable segment in March or April, I don't know how we get to that point, when in fact it will be the March meeting in which we vote on a contract with the financial advisor. So, as you can see, there are many steps along the way, but I want to make sure, as you have worked very hard to clearly present many of these ideas to the public under the desire to be very transparent in our actions, there are many hitches along the way in fully being able to address all of those issues at one time. Additionally, I do think the public should know, because the legislators know, how critical it is for this authority to have the level of staff necessary to perform the functions. Internally, we don't. And in terms of the number of individuals that work for the authority, that's not changed since Mr. Van Ark came on board. Because through much of that time, there's still a cap on hirings, a restriction on hiring because of the budget and otherwise, and authorization to hire to positions. So we came up with a business plan as to what an organizational plan as to what this organization should look like a year ago November, and we have yet to really be able to implement any of it other than hiring of a CEO. Therefore, the authorization to hire to those spots, the ability to put the bodies in place to ensure that all of these very important issues are addressed, we are limited. So I know the legislature and the legislative leadership are aware of that, as is the governor's office, but that is, for our board members' perspective, that's one of our number one choke points that we need to address within the next few weeks to be able to move forward. I appreciate the full CEO's report, a lot there. I will go back and look at it all online to make sure I didn't miss anything. At this moment in time, the next item before us is that of closed session for the items that are listed. Coming out of closed session, I do not believe we will need to take any action, but we will certainly come back into session at the end of our closed session, and we will adjourn into this room. Is that what we are to do? So at this time, I'd like to move the board into closed session. I'd like to call the High-Speed Rail Authority Board meeting back to order. Report from closed session, there is none, so we stand adjourned.